Chapter 956. With Night Sorrow blocking his escape route, Shang Jingchun controlled the drum to suppress Night Sorrow. Then, he crushed a message crystal to ask for help. That was his father's message crystal. He was worried about his own safety. If Kuei Long was killed and Night Sorrow's clone dared to come, he would definitely die. Standing in front of the spatial barrier, the Overlord's body shook. Then, he waved his right hand in front of him and cut open the space. Then, he tore with both hands and expanded the spatial crack infinitely. He could feel that Shang Jingchun was very close to him, just across from the spatial barrier. "Come out!" The Overlord roared and stretched out his right hand. A huge energy hand entered the nine-domain world. The energy hand created a huge vortex that wrapped around Shang Jingchun and the golden drum at the same time. Then, Shang Jingchun and the golden drum were pulled out of the nine-domain world. Night Sorrow waved the spacetime pagoda and smashed it towards Shang Jingchun. He did not dare to destroy the golden drum, but he definitely could not let Shang Jingchun escape. At this time, Night Sorrow attacked with the power of the nine-domain origin law. With the support of the spacetime pagoda and the nine-domain origin law, the vortex energy was shattered and Shang Jingchun was sent out of the spatial crack. The golden drum was taken away, which made Night Sorrow very angry. Whether Shang Jingchun killed him or not was secondary. He was angry that he did not save Yi Tian, the ancestor of the Night Clan. Although he was angry, Night Sorrow kept attacking Shang Jingchun with his spear, forcing Shang Jingchun to retreat. Without the protection of the drum, Shang Jingchun was not on the same level as him. In a short time, Night Sorrow had severely injured Shang Jingchun. Then he smashed the spacetime pagoda, causing Shang Jingchun to spit out blood. With a low roar, Night Sorrow chased after Shang Jingchun and broke his 4 limbs. Then, he carried the energy hand, Zhu Juyun, to Night Sorrow's side. A King Realm expert. My energy and laws cannot suppress him. What's next? Night Sorrow's expression was very ugly. After the battle ended, my original body was outside the array formation leading the way. However, my doppelganger rushed over, Zhu Juyun said. At this moment, she had sent her doppelganger over. How am I supposed to answer to grandpa and parents if I didn't save the Moon Empress? Night Sorrow was very angry. Let's continue to prepare for the battle. Maybe they will send more people over, Zhu Juyun said. At that moment, Night Sorrow's body paused. The 9 regions' origin energy told him that the enemy's Saint Ruler could not enter. After Night Sorrow snatched back the light-type origin stone, the 9 regions' world's origin energy was complete. Coupled with the law of nothingness as the core, the laws of nothingness had increased once more. Night Sorrow explained the situation to Zhu Juyun. That means the 9 zones world is safe. The only regret is that we did not manage to save the Moon Queen. Zhu Juyun looked at Night Sorrow and did not know how to persuade him. I will think of a way to save her. Let's go back first, Night Sorrow said. At this moment, the joy of victory in his heart had been diluted. It was mainly because Yi Tian's current situation was too miserable. After Night Sorrow carried Shang Jingchun and Zhu Juyun through the array, he flew back to the plaza of Sky-Bearing City. At this moment, the plaza was littered with corpses. Most of them were from the Heaven Profound world. There were also Nether Beast saints who did not fear death. Night Sorrow slowly walked in front of Yi Linghuan and Yi Wuyo. I'm sorry. I was unable to save the Moon Empress' great ancestor. It's not your fault. It was not easy to win this battle. The enemy was too strong. Yi Linghuan was in a bad mood. When he was young, the Moon Empress had hugged him and accompanied him in cultivation. They had a very deep relationship. However, it doesn't matter. I caught the leader. Raise your head. I don't know your name. If you want to live, I want to save her. Night Sorrow threw Shang Jingchun to the ground. Then hurry up and trade with my father. In a while, the 2 spatial worlds will shift. It will be very difficult to break through space. It will be very troublesome to communicate through the Wuji world. Shang Jingchun was also very anxious. The 9 zones world was just a subsidiary world. Its value could not be compared to his own. He was naturally worried about his own safety. Night Sorrow thought for a moment. Then he brought Yi Linghuan, his parents, and Long Xianxing through the array. They arrived in front of the spatial barrier. He casually sent out a strand of void true qi to seal Shang Jingquan's cultivation. Then he threw him to Yilinghuan. Night Sorrow sent out 2 spears to break through the spatial barrier. It was not difficult for Night Sorrow to break through the spatial barrier of the 9 zones world. However, it was not easy to cut through the spatial barrier of the profound heaven world. Without Yi Shang's control, the spatial barrier was not closed by the people from the heaven profound world. However, Yi Shang also felt that the distance between the 2 worlds had increased. If you want this peak holy king to live, then hand over that person. Night Sorrow shouted. Hand over the person? The emperor bathed in flames did not understand what Night Sorrow meant. Above Gong Yanglai bowed and told the emperor of the profound heaven dynasty that he had given Shang Jingquan a prisoner. All right. Hand him over to this emperor first. This emperor will naturally return him to you. The emperor bathed in flames shouted at the spatial turbulence. Shang Tianfeng was extremely angry. He had been the emperor of the profound heaven dynasty for tens of thousands of years, and he had never been so passive. No one could bargain with him, but now that his son was in Night Sorrow's hands, he could only negotiate. No, I have to take him first before I can release him. Night Sorrow shouted at the spatial rift. Impossible. This emperor must take him first. Shang Tianfeng's words were filled with killing intent. Dream on. He's wearing a light yellow robe. He must be the core of your profound heaven dynasty. Don't negotiate with me. Give me that golden drum right now, and I'll release him. Night Sorrow naturally knew that Shang Jingquan's identity was not simple, so he insisted. This was his bargaining chip. If you want to negotiate like this, then there's no way we can negotiate. Shang Tianfeng could not give him the sky drum. That would put him in a passive position. If you don't release him, then you want him to go back? That's impossible. Night Sorrow did not care who was negotiating with him. As the 2 of them were in a stalemate, the spatial rift between the 2 worlds became smaller and smaller until it closed. That's all there is to his value. Grandfather will take him down. Torture him however you can. Night Sorrow was helpless when he failed to exchange for the person. He could not compromise because if he handed him over first, it might be all for naught. Don't torture me. My soul clone will torture him. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Shang Jingquan, whose limbs were all broken, was somewhat anxious. There's no harm in telling you. I have a way to determine that person's aura. If his condition is not good, I will know. It's not that I don't want to give you a chance. I need to feel that person's well. If his life aura continues to wither, then don't live. I don't believe I can't save him, Night Sorrow said coldly. Shang Jingquan agreed. He had to agree. This situation made Yilinghuan feel more at ease. Although he couldn't save the person, he still had a bargaining chip in his hand. Night Sorrow brought a few people back to Sky-bearing City. Then he removed the Great Formation and began to wrap up the war. True Ocean Sage and Black Dragon Sage's deaths made Night Sorrow's heart ache, but this was war. We will set up a steel. Everything will be arranged, Tai Shu Yen said to Night Sorrow. She knew that the matter of the Moon Empress still had some impact on Night Sorrow. Speak. Fourth Watch. Chapter 957. Take care of the aftermath. The people who died in battle are all heroes of the 9 regions world. We have to treat them well, said Night Sorrow. We will. Don't worry. Tai Shu Yen and the others nodded. Night Sorrow, don't worry. You can sense the Moon Empress's aura. Once her aura weakens, kill her. I don't believe she won't treat the Moon Empress well, said Yilinghuan as he looked at Shang Jingquan. Night Sorrow nodded. In truth, this made him feel more at ease. The other side wouldn't dare to torture Shang Jingquan anymore. After all, Shang Jingquan was in his hands. Commander, should we call back Sky-bearing City's people now? Asked Tai Shu Yen. Although they don't dare come, we'll wait for a while longer just to be safe, said Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow guessed that the other side wouldn't send anyone else, but he couldn't take the risk. Then Night Sorrow and Yi Qianhua began to withdraw the formation. There was no need for it. The Heaven Profound World's Saint Kings couldn't enter, so they wouldn't casually send people into the 9 regions world. That was just sending them to their deaths. Just at this moment, The sky shattered once more, and a saint appeared above sky-bearing city. You really dare come to court death? Night Sorrow raised his spear, about to kill. Don't. My imperial father tore open space and sent my guard here. She brought a mother-son communication crystal. You can confirm the safety of your Yi clan member at any time. Don't attack me. Seeing that Night Sorrow was about to kill, Shang Jingchun hastily called out. You're smart. If you can guarantee the safety of my Yi clan, I won't kill you. Instead, I'll let you live a better life. Hand over the crystal and scram, said Night Sorrow coldly. I'm staying behind to take care of my prince, said the Peak Saint. Just be an ordinary person. Night Sorrow's left hand spun, grabbing this saint to his side. He sent out a ray of energy with his left hand, sealing her dantian. Night Sorrow put away the spiritual avatar that had been preparing for battle after killing Kuei Long and collecting the materials. He merged it with his main body. In the profound heaven world, there were many people standing in front of the spatial barrier. Shang Jingchun was also there, but he was just a clone that could only transmit messages. Father, things can be stabilized for now, Shang Jingchun said. It's fine as long as they're stable. We'll think of a way to make a deal. Let's go back. Shang Tianfeng's figure flashed, and he left. He was very angry because the Tiannan Empire had suffered a double loss in this massacre. He didn't mind losing some men, but he was very angry that his son had been captured. Inside the palace, Shang Tianfeng sat on the main seat. Gong Yanglai, you're in charge of looking after that prisoner. Don't let anything happen to him. This concerns the third prince's safety. This subordinate will deal with it properly. Gong Yanglai bowed. Bo Qinghan, I put you and the third prince in charge of handling this matter, but you actually cowered and let the third prince fall. Are you more honorable than my son? Shang Tianfeng looked at Bo Qinghan. I wouldn't dare. I was wrong. Bo Qinghan knelt on the ground. He understood Shang Tianfeng's methods. Commit suicide as an apology, and I won't pursue the matter with your family. Also, prepare for war. I don't believe we can't deal with the 9 regions world. Shang Tianfeng left the palace. He had basically announced Bo Qinghan's fate, and no one in the Tiannan Empire dared to go against him. Go back and tell them that Bo Qinghan will commit suicide in 3 days. Bo Qinghan sighed and left the palace. However, there were imperial guards in the palace, and they wouldn't give him a chance to escape. Within the 9 regions world sky-bearing city, Night Sorrow and Yi Qianhua removed the formation. Night Sorrow, can you let me interrogate that person in a bit? I want to know who the current ruler of the Tiannan Empire is. Yi Qianhua looked at Night Sorrow after removing the formation. The only genuine copy of I was V, while the others were Q, pirated copy K, sure. He should be a direct descendant of the Tiannan Empire, but we can't kill him for now because the Moon Empress is still in their hands, said Night Sorrow. I won't kill him. He's just a prince, so there's not much meaning to it. Yi Qianhua nodded. Night Sorrow put away the 1,000 derivation illusory formation around sky-bearing city. He Shang and the others also removed the heavenly cycle formation. A few days later, sky-bearing city's people returned under the arrangements of the commander's manor. They had been arranged to be in a nearby city, so they were able to teleport back. Night Sorrow brought Yi Qianhua to the commander's manor. After asking around, he learned that Yi Linghuan had brought Shang Jingchun to Night Moon City to be imprisoned. Right now, the commander's manor's people should focus on recovering from the battle. Focus on the resources in the Nether Realm, said Night Sorrow. Yes. Tai Shu Yen, Yun Tianlong, Jun Xuanji, and the others all bowed. The other thing is to ensure the safety of the families and descendants of the people who died in battle. If they don't have any morals, directly wipe them out, ordered Night Sorrow. After confirming that he hadn't missed anything, Night Sorrow returned to Sky City. He placed the Spacetime Pagoda next to the lake and brought Yi Qianhua to Night Moon City. In Night Moon City, Night Sorrow saw that the higher-ups of Night Moon City were all present. Seeing Night Sorrow, everyone nodded. Although Night Sorrow's seniority was low, his strength and prestige were there for all to see. Where are the hostages? Asked Night Sorrow. Their cultivation bases have been sealed, and one of them is heavily injured. They're in a pavilion in the back, said Yiling Huan. This person is related to the Moon Empress's safety. I'll take care of him in the future, said Night Sorrow. At that moment, the emperors of Night Moon City all stood up and cupped their hands to Night Sorrow. They were all very worried about Yi Tian's safety because he was their father. I'll do my best. In addition, the spatial laws of Night Moon City will be strengthened. Whether or not the unrivaled sovereigns can enter the Saint Realm will depend on their own luck, said Night Sorrow. This was the care given to the Night Moon dynasty, who had contributed greatly to the Nine-Domain world, after the Nine-Domain world was completed. Yi Shenxian and the others nodded. They didn't have any way to save Yi Tian right now, so they could only hope that Night Sorrow would come. Everyone, don't worry. The Moon Empress is imprisoned, but she won't be tortured anymore. This crystal ball can see the Moon Empress's situation at any time. If there's a problem, come and find me. Night Sorrow comforted the emperors and handed the crystal ball to Yi Shenyue. The Moon Empress won't be suffering now. You don't have to be too anxious. Be careful, said Yi Shenxian as he looked at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow nodded. Under the guidance of the emperors, Night Sorrow saw Shang Jingchun and his guard and maid in a pavilion. Take him and follow me, said Night Sorrow to Shang Jingchun's maid. The maid also understood the situation. She carried Shang Jingchun and followed behind Night Sorrow. After arriving at Sky City, Night Sorrow arranged for them to stay in a pavilion. He and Yi Qianhua sat across from Shang Jingchun and the maid. I have some questions for you right now. I hope you'll tell me the truth. After this, as long as my people are doing well, I won't disturb you. I'll let you live peacefully until the replacement, said Night Sorrow. Okay. Shang Jingchun didn't want to provoke Night Sorrow right now because the Tiannin dynasty was already arranging for the replacement. He didn't want to provoke Night Sorrow and make him suffer. Speak. Chapter 958. The next question was asked by Yi Tianhua. When he found out that the king of Tiannin Empire was Shang Tianfeng, Yi Qianhua clenched his fists and his body trembled. After calming himself down, Yi Qianhua asked a few more questions before leaving the pavilion. Night Sorrow set up a 1000-derivation illusionary array outside the pavilion and communicated with Yi Qianhua while setting up the array. Shang Tianfeng was the one who forced my parents to their deaths. It's good that he's still alive. I'm afraid that he's dead. Yi Qianhua said. He's at least a king realm cultivator. Otherwise, he would have reached the end of his lifespan. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said, yes, Tiannin Empire's Shang clan is a clan with a long history. Their innate bloodline is berserk and can instantly increase their fighting strength by 30%. How strong is the King realm? Back then they were afraid of our Yi clan, which was why they schemed. Yi Qianhua was very disdainful of the Shang clan. After setting up the array, Night Sorrow brought Yi Qianhua to his residence and brewed a pot of tea. Next, they will take action. After all, that's a prince. Yi Qianhua looked at Night Sorrow and said. After Night Sorrow and Yi Qianhua communicated for a while, they estimated that the other party would think of a way to come to the 9 regions world from the Wuji world. After listening to Yi Qianhua's explanation, Night Sorrow also knew some things. The Great 1000 Worlds were all in operation, but there was still a way to connect them. That was the Inter-Realm Teleportation Array. It required a top-grade teleportation crystal. The Wuji world and the Heaven Mystic world had such teleportation arrays. The Wuji world was a subsidiary world of the Heaven Mystic world, but its form was very detached. The Wuji world's Realm Lord's Palace had established a power in the Heaven Mystic world. They set up a teleportation array and the life forms of the Wuji world could enter the Heaven Mystic world freely to explore and train. However, if the people of the Heaven Mystic world wanted to teleport to the Wuji world, they would have to go through an inspection. If they couldn't pass the inspection, they wouldn't be allowed to enter. If they forcefully entered, they would be killed. Furthermore, experts wouldn't take this risk. No one knew what cultivation level the Limitless World's World Lord was at. If he was at the King Realm, then if they fought in his world, the other King Realm experts would also be killed. Night Sorrow. Actually, in the Sky Profound world, which is 1,000 times bigger than the 9 domain worlds, the King Realm is extremely rare. The King Realm is a first-rate force. Yi Qianhua said to Night Sorrow. We don't know how many King Realm experts there are in the Tianan dynasty, but that Shang Tianfeng is definitely one, Night Sorrow said. Back then I was still young, but I knew that my father was at the King Realm, while my grandfather and mother were at the half-step King Realm. At that time, Shang Tianfeng was only a high-level Saint King, so he felt threatened and did something despicable. Yi Qianhua's face was filled with memories. There was both happiness and pain in his memories. We don't know what kind of methods they will use to make a deal with us, but I will be cautious. If there is even the slightest risk, we won't make a deal. In any case, their King Realm and Saint King Realm experts can't enter the 9 domain worlds, Night Sorrow said. They will probably communicate with the Limitless World's World Lord Palace and then make a deal. Yi Qianhua said his idea. Night Sorrow, you can try to see if your nihility law can isolate the Limitless World source from probing. If it can, then you can enter the Limitless World in advance, or even enter the Heaven Mystic World to set up an ambush. If there is a chance, save them. If there is no chance, talk about the deal, Yi Qianhua said. I need to make 2 preparations, Night Sorrow said. Yes, that Shang Tianfeng's character is cunning and changeable. After suffering a loss this time, he will not let it go. He will definitely take revenge on the 9 domain worlds. As for what methods he will use, it is hard to say. If he can save Yi Tian and hold a hostage, that will be the safest, Yi Qianhua said. Then I will think about it carefully, Night Sorrow said after thinking for a while. Yi Qianhua then said goodbye to Night Sorrow and went to the space-time treasure pagoda to cultivate. Night Sorrow thought. After listening to Yi Qianhua's analysis, he knew that the Heaven Mystic World's Tianan dynasty would not give up after this massacre. You plan to go to the profound Heaven World? If you want to go, then go. You have an avatar in the Heaven Sealing Great Hall, which means that you are undying and indestructible. The other 9 regions have just begun to develop, and everything is not mature yet. They cannot provide you with any help in your growth. The 9 regions' origin body communicated with Yi Shan. As they continued to communicate, Night Sorrow learned that the 9 domain worlds were currently unable to produce a King Realm cultivator. That was because the spatial world had only been formed for a short period of time. Its laws had just been completed, and the will of heaven and earth was not strong enough. Cultivators were unable to comprehend the will of heaven and earth. This was also the reason why Yi Qianhua had been unable to reach the King Realm even after cultivating for several lifetimes. Actually, your growth is the growth of the 9 domain worlds. The 9 domain origin body communicated with Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that he had to leave the 9 domain worlds. He had to deal with Yi Tian's matter, as well as his own growth. This was related to the future of the 9 domain worlds. While Night Sorrow was thinking, a group of people came to his residence. His parents, Wu Lingfei, Xue Shi, and his 3 wives had all come. Night Sorrow, don't feel pressured. The Moon Empress is doing well. They've already healed her and changed her treatment, said Yu Wuyo. I know. No matter how good her life is, she's still a prisoner. No matter what, we still have to rescue her. It's just that we don't need to be in such a rush, said Night Sorrow. You have to attend the funerals of the True Sea Sage and the Black Dragon Sage. You can't delay the others just because Night Moon is busy, said Yuqing to Night Sorrow. Mother, I understand. Night Sorrow nodded. Also, we have to hold a celebration. The 9 domain worlds withstood the calamity of slaughter. That was a problem that had never been solved before. Now that it has been resolved, the people of the Commander's Manor are all suggesting that we hold a celebration, said Yilinghuan. We should. Night Sorrow nodded. He felt that the deaths of the True Sea Sage and the Black Dragon Sage were regretful, but he couldn't deny the results of this battle. At this moment, the 9 domain origin Qi sent a message to Night Sorrow. The True Sea Sage and the Black Dragon Sage's souls had not been destroyed. They would reincarnate. However, because their souls had been heavily injured, their consciousnesses had already disappeared. As for whether or not they could awaken, that would depend on fate. Last time, during the Great Massacre Calamity, the origin of the 9 domains had been shattered and could not protect anyone's soul. Therefore, all the Saint Kings and Saints had perished, However, this time was different. Yi Shang had snatched the Light Origin Stone and the 9 Domains world's laws were complete. He could take care of the living beings of the 9 Domains world to a certain extent. Unless their souls had been destroyed, there was no possibility of reincarnation. This made Night Sorrow very happy. He exerted force with his hand and crushed the table beside him. Original page. What is it? Seeing Night Sorrow lose his composure, Yiling Huan and the others stood up. They didn't understand what had happened because Night Sorrow had been very calm these past few years. Speak. Chapter 959. Sorry, I got too excited. I just received news from the 9 Realms essences that True Ocean Saint and Black Dragon Saint haven't completely perished. They still have a chance to reincarnate, but they've lost their wills and consciousness, said Night Sorrow. That's great. Yiling Huan said happily. The deaths of True Sea Saint and Black Dragon Saint could be said to be the pain and heartache of the 9 Domain world. Knowing that the 2 of them were still alive in this world, everyone felt a little more at ease. This also shows that in future battles, soul defense and soul attacks will be very important. If there are no secret techniques, I'll think of something, Night Sorrow said after thinking for a moment. Everyone nodded. While they were chatting, the higher-ups of the commander's residence also came to Night Sorrow's residence. Fortunately, Night Sorrow's residence was big enough to accommodate some people. Why is everyone here? Night Sorrow greeted them with a smile. If we didn't come, you wouldn't have gone to the commander's residence, Tai Shu Yen said with a smile. It's not a big deal now. You can deal with it as you see fit, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Commander, I plan to step down. After entering the Saint Realm, there won't be any bottlenecks for a period of time. I have to seize the time to cultivate, Tai Shu Yen said. That's true. Then let's make some arrangements. Elder June will be promoted to Vice Commander. What about you, Zhu Jiyun? Night Sorrow looked at Zhu Jiyun. I want to cultivate. I need to reach the peak of the Saint King Realm. The Nether Realm's Cloud-Slashing King can do some things. You can make the arrangements, Zhu Jiyun said. Yishang thought for a moment, then looked at Yun Tianlong and Jun Xuanji and made the arrangements. That's fine. Vice Commander Yun and Vice Commander Jun notified Zhu Yun King to become an elder in the commander's residence. Afterward, Xiaolon Jun, who was the supreme elder of the commander's residence, asked about the arrangements for the Saint Crystals obtained from this war. High-level venerables and venerables with potential will be arranged first. Venerables who have fought bitterly for the 9 regions world will have priority, Night Sorrow said after thinking for a moment. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, everyone nodded. Night Sorrow's arrangements were very reasonable. My only regret is the death of my 2 old friends and the imprisonment of the Moon Empress, Xiaolon Jun said. Night Sorrow shook his head and told him about True Ocean Saint and Black Dragon Saint's souls not being destroyed, and that Night Sky was doing well. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, everyone felt more at ease. Lu Qin then said that the resources she obtained this time were only some healing pills and some resources that could instantly replenish energy. There were almost no resources that could assist in cultivation. These resources will be used as strategic reserves. Also, I've obtained some resources as well. As for those weapons, I'll be distributing them to my brothers in the God-Slaying Squad. I won't be handing them over, Night Sorrow said. No one disagreed. It could be said that Night Sorrow had dominated the war. After telling Night Sorrow that True Ocean Saint and Black Dragon Saint's funerals would be in 3 days, and that the 3 Realms celebration would be in 7 days, the commander's residence's people all left. That was because Night Sorrow also needed to rest and reunite with his family. Everyone knew that Night Sorrow had been under a lot of pressure during this time. After the commander's residence's people left, the God-Slaying Squad's people returned from the central prefecture. Yin Yanxiao also returned to the city in the sky. Brother, you're very powerful. You killed several peak holy kings. Right now, the immortal holy king Night Sorrow's name is like thunder in the 9 regions world, said Yin Yanxiao to Night Sorrow. How have you been recently? Has your cultivation been smooth? Asked Night Sorrow with a smile. Of course it's been smooth. My cultivation has been smooth, said Yin Yanxiao. She was already a mid-stage venerable and was the most outstanding child of the Sacred Hall's batch. After the family enjoyed dinner, they chatted on the viewing platform of the residence. When Yi Huio asked about the exchange of hostages, Night Sorrow thought about it and told him about the situation and his plans. Son, the 9 regions world is our territory. It's already so difficult for us to win a war, yet you still want to go to other people's territory. Yuqing was a little unwilling, mainly because it was too dangerous. Mother, if I don't go out, I'll be stuck at a bottleneck for the rest of my life. I won't be able to achieve anything higher. I don't want that. Also, the matter of the Moon Empress must be prepared for a rainy day, said Night Sorrow. You're a Saint King and have a lifespan of 10,000 years. There's nothing to worry about, said Yuqing. Mother, I have a doppelganger similar to my true body in the Heaven Sealing Grand Hall. As long as the 9 regions world is not destroyed, my doppelganger will not be destroyed. If something happens to me, that doppelganger will be my true body, said Yishang. So that's how it is. All right, Mother won't stop you, but your wife can't come with you, said Yuqing. Yuqing's consideration was based on the fact that the whole family needed someone to stay together. I understand, Night Sorrow nodded. Over the next few days, after attending the funerals of Zhenhai Sheng and Black Dragon Saint, Night Sorrow accompanied his family and didn't care about anything else. In the past, because he had been worried about the massacre, he had been working hard on his cultivation, so Night Sorrow didn't spend time with his family. In addition, Night Sorrow told his parents that he wanted to resign from his position as commander and that he would leave the 9 regions world. He wouldn't have time to manage things, so he might as well let someone else do it. Yi Huio and Yuqing both supported Night Sorrow's idea. In their hearts, they didn't need their child to have great achievements, as long as he was happy. In addition, Night Sorrow had done everything he could. Night Sorrow's 3 wives also supported him, and Xueshi didn't have any objections. Wu Lingfei, who stayed in the city in the sky, also didn't express any opinions. Night Sorrow relaxed for a few days. Tai Shuyan came to invite Night Sorrow to the commander's residence. Today was the day of the celebration. Night Sorrow brought his family and the members of the God-slaying squad to the commander's residence. At this time, the commander's residence had been rebuilt, and it was even more majestic and domineering. The square in front of the commander's residence had also been expanded, on the basis of the original Taiching City Square. What made Yi Shang flabbergasted was that there was a 9-zhang tall statue erected at the front of the plaza. It was him with the reincarnation spear on his back. His white battle robe fluttered in the wind as if it was about to come to life. How is it? This is the work of the Eastern Profound Region sculptor, Lei Hua, said Xielanjun with a smile. This isn't appropriate. Victory in the war is the result of everyone's efforts, not mine alone, said Night Sorrow. He had never thought that a statue of himself would appear. There's nothing inappropriate about it. You killed 3 Saint Kings and a peak Saint King ferocious beast. You were the one who dominated the battle. Without your help, the 9 regions world would be in a mess today. Long Xianxing said. Above, Commander, go on the stage and say a few words, said Jun Xuanji. Night Sorrow thought for a moment, then walked to the platform in front of the square and looked at the crowd. After seeing Night Sorrow appear, the originally joyous crowd quieted down. This time, our 9 regions world won the war. It wasn't easy, and we paid the price of blood and lives. Here, I thank the heroes who fought for our 9 regions world. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, he bowed twice to the sky. Withstanding the great calamity of slaughter is a new beginning for our 9 regions world. Everything will be better, and I will continue to work hard. However, from today onwards, I will no longer be the commander. I will also start a new chapter in my life, said Night Sorrow. At this moment, everyone looked at Night Sorrow in a daze. No one had thought that Night Sorrow would say that last sentence. No one could accept it because Night Sorrow was their backbone. Speak. Chapter 960. That won't do. Commander, what are you doing? Long Xianxing and the others were already on the platform. I'm really not suitable to be a commander anymore. There are still many things I need to do. The Tiannan dynasty of the Tianxian world suffered a loss this time and will not let it go. In addition, I also need to break the shackles of the 9 regions world, the shackles that prevent us from entering the Tianxian realm, Yishang said. But Commander, other than you, it'll be very difficult for others to manage the 3 spatial worlds. It'll be very difficult to convince the masses. Long Xiansheng looked at the people present, mainly Zhu Jiyun and Jun Xuanji. You should still be the commander. The vice commander and elders of the commander's residence can help you share the burden, said Jun Xuanji. It's not suitable to not do anything and still occupy the position, said Night Sorrow as he shook his head. At this time, the crowd also became restless. Everyone knew that the commander was the immortal holy king, Night Sorrow. Under his leadership, the 9-domain world had developed at an unprecedented rate. Now that Night Sorrow wanted to retreat, it had a huge impact on everyone. Everyone, don't worry. The commander's residence will have a perfect solution for this matter, said Long Xianxing. Yes, everyone, don't worry. No matter when, no matter where, as long as the 9-domain world needs me, I, Night Sorrow, will definitely stand up. Even if I die in battle, I won't take half a step back, promised Night Sorrow. Everyone who responded to Night Sorrow bowed in greeting. At this time, Night Sorrow once again felt the power of virtue enter his body. Outside his spirit sea, the golden halo behind his head became even more conspicuous. After Night Sorrow returned the bow, he followed the people from the commander's residence back into the commander's residence. Commander, none of us can accept your sudden decision, said Jun Xuanji. But I'm really not suitable. I plan to go to the limitless realm and then enter the profound heaven world. They're trying to kill us. This is an insult to us. I can't tolerate this, Yishang said. But this has nothing to do with you being the commander. We only need the vice commander and elders. If there's anything, we can discuss it. Don't talk about stepping down. That will really disappoint the cultivators and commoners of the 3 realms, said Yun Tianlong. We all know that it's been hard on you, but the commander's residence and the 3 realms need a pillar of support. If someone else were to be the commander, it would be hard to convince the masses. It would be detrimental to the stability of the 3 realms, said Xian Wenxiu. He trusted Yishang, so he was worried that a change in commander would affect the profound mysteries realm. Hearing everyone's words, Yishang could only nod. He couldn't refuse. Then, a grand banquet was held, and the real celebration began. After drinking with everyone, Yishang brought his wife back to the city in the sky. No need to worry. I'm just going to take a look. I'll come back once I understand the situation, said Night Sorrow. He wouldn't bring the girls even if Yu Qing agreed. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, Yang Lei thought about it and didn't say anything. She knew that this matter couldn't be discussed. It wasn't just Yu Qing's idea. Night Sorrow didn't agree either. Night Sorrow didn't go to the Wuji world directly. He hadn't cultivated the myriad Dao treasured tome to the peak yet. Inside the space-time treasure pagoda, Night Sorrow meditated inside the dragon cauldron to recover. At the same time, he checked the situation outside. At this moment, in the Wuji world's Wuji city, a phantom appeared in the sky-bearing palace. Greetings, Realm Lord, said the 2 elders in the sky-bearing palace as they bowed. The 2 of you, go to the spatial barrier area that connects to the 9-domain world and check it out. There's an energy fluctuation there, said the phantom before disappearing. Night Sorrow meditated peacefully inside the dragon cauldron. He knew that this was the first risk. The other risk was when he went through the transfer array from the Wuji world to the Heaven Profound world. If nothing happened, then he could enter the Heaven Profound world safely. And the beginning of the 2nd book. Chapter 961. Night Sorrow's soul power was tyrannical. He had been scanning the outside of the dragon cauldron. He had patience now, and he was willing to exchange patience for safety. 6 hours later, a group of people appeared. They were patrolling near the spatial barrier. Night Sorrow realized that the leader was a 7-star Saint King. Night Sorrow knew that this was not the Realm Lord of the Wuji world. The Realm Lord of the Wuji world would not be in the middle of a stage. He would definitely be at the peak of a stage. This group of people left after checking one round. Night Sorrow hid very well, so it was impossible for him to be discovered. Unless the Realm Lord came and used the world's origin power to suppress and search bit by bit, it would be impossible to discover Night Sorrow. This group of people left. Night Sorrow emerged from the ground. He kept the space-splitting spear back into his body and flew forward. Night Sorrow wanted to find a city to understand the situation first. Otherwise, it would be easy to recognize that he was not a native of the Wuji world. As for being recognized, Night Sorrow was not worried. He had reached the realm of returning to one's original state. Those below the high-level Saint King would not be able to detect his cultivation. After half a day, Night Sorrow entered a city. There were guards guarding the city. However, seeing that Night Sorrow was dressed in a tolerant white robe and did not have any cultivation, they did not even ask. After entering the city, Night Sorrow found a tea house. After asking for a pot of tea, he listened to the conversations of others. He realized that this Wuji world was very similar to the Nine Regions world. They were all mainly humans. After listening for a while, Night Sorrow left the tea house and went to the main street of this small city. He then bought a small map. This was a small city. Naturally, it was impossible for there to be anything too high level. Night Sorrow looked at the map and rushed towards the nearest big city. This time, Night Sorrow didn't go through the city gate. It was illogical for a person without any cultivation to run around outside the city. The quality of the city guards in a big city was also different from that of a small one. The people of the small city were simple and honest. It was normal for the guards of the big city to look for trouble. Night Sorrow did not want to cause any trouble. He found a hole in the city wall's defense and used the space law to cut into the big city. This was a cultivator's city. It was comparable to the royal cities of the various dynasties in the Nine Regions world's Grand Clarity domain. Night Sorrow leisurely strolled on the streets. At this moment, he revealed his cultivation level to be at the 5th step, which was suitable for the cultivators here. In a shop, Night Sorrow bought an entire map of the everlasting world. Then he found a large tea house and asked for a pot of tea. He slowly drank while listening to the conversations of others. Tea houses and restaurants were the easiest places to gather information. There were all sorts of people here. Night Sorrow's soul power enveloped this place. Everyone's conversation was heard by him. While listening to Night Sorrow, he looked at the map and compared it with the conversations of the customers. The main city of the everlasting world was the Everlasting City. The city that intersected with the Heaven Profound world was the true Extreme City. These were the two largest cities in the everlasting world. This Flying Cloud City was the closest city to the Nine Regions world. At this moment, in the Heaven Profound world, in the everlasting world's two Extreme City, there was a person sitting in the City Lord's mansion. This person's body was filled with fire energy. He was the Emperor Lord of the Sky South Empire. I am Shang Tianfeng of the Sky South Empire. I would like to discuss some matters with the World Lord of your everlasting world. Please inform him, said Shang Tianfeng to an elder sitting in the main seat. This elder was a 5-star holy king, the city lord of two Extreme City. A 5-star holy king's cultivation wasn't much in the Heaven Profound world, but no one dared to casually provoke two Extreme City. Even the major powers of the Heaven Profound world wouldn't. The city lord of two Extreme City could be easily killed, but the revenge of the everlasting world's world lord was something no one was willing to accept. The everlasting world's world lord was undying within the everlasting world. His true body was in the everlasting world. If his clone came out to take revenge, no power would be able to accept it. So it's Emperor Shang. What is it? Tell me roughly so I can give the world lord an explanation. Otherwise, the world lord would have come here for nothing. The elder sitting in the main seat was neither haughty nor humble. He was nothing in front of Shang Tianfeng. Shang Tianfeng could crush him at any time, but he had a backer behind him. It's like this. My Sky South Empire's people are in the Nine Regions world, and they also have hostages in the hands of my Sky South Empire. Thus, both sides wish to exchange hostages. Shang Tianfeng directly stated his intentions. The exchange of hostages will be carried out in our everlasting world? Asked the elder. He was a family member of the Everlasting World's World Lord, Yenwu Absolute. He had a very high position in the Everlasting World. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to become the city lord of Two Extreme City. The crux of the problem is that our experts cannot enter the Everlasting World. Once we enter the Everlasting World, there will be conflict. Furthermore, if the other side isn't confident, they won't trade with us. Thus, I want to discuss with your Everlasting World. If you can assist my Sky South Empire in exchanging hostages, then my Sky South Empire is willing to give you resources to express our gratitude. If you can open up a path for us to enter the 9 regions world, then your Everlasting World can obtain 5 cities of my Sky South Empire, said Shang Tianfeng. Then Emperor Shang, please wait a moment. I need to return and meet with the World Lord. Men, bring Emperor Shang to the VIP building to rest. Yenwu Absolute waved his hand and called for someone to bring Shang Tianfeng to rest. Shang Tianfeng hadn't left the Sky South Empire for many years. If there was anything, he would directly give orders. However, this time, it was related to his son's life. He had no choice but to personally come. After Yenwu Absolute spoke to his assistant, he took a transportation formation back to the Everlasting World. Following another transportation formation, he arrived at the Everlasting City. In a small courtyard not far from the Sky-bearing Palace in Everlasting City, a middle-aged man and a woman were playing chess. Absolute Marshal, come take a look. Is there any chance of winning this game? The middle-aged man waved his hand at Yenwu Absolute. And #new quickest start B. The middle-aged man was wearing a long robe. Although he had 2 small tufts of mustache, he appeared very amiable. His aura was very calm. He also looked very handsome. His black hair was simply tied behind his head. If people saw this person on the streets, they would only give him a few more glances. They would definitely not think of anything else. However, the truth was that he was the ruler of the Everlasting World, the Everlasting World's World Lord, Yen Tianpe. World Lord, please don't make fun of me. This time, I have come for an important matter. Yenwu Absolute bowed and said, even if it's an important matter, we must finish this game of chess. Even if we lose, we must lose openly. We cannot give up halfway. Yen Tianpe waved his hand at Yenwu Absolute to have him sit down and continued playing chess. Tianpe, you handle the matter first. The woman sitting in front of Yen Tianpe said. The woman had a graceful figure, but she was wearing a veil. That's fine too. What matter is worthy of you personally coming back? Yen Tianpe asked Yenwu Absolute as he brewed tea. The Sky Profound World and the 9 Domain World want to make a hostage trade. They want us to cooperate. Yenwu Absolute explained the matter in detail. Just at this moment, the woman sitting in front of Yen Tianpe trembled and stood up. Calm down first. Yen Tianpe nodded slightly at the woman and smiled. Interesting. Seems like the Sky South Empire is going to harvest the 9 Domain World once every 10,000 years. However, the result is that they suffered a great loss. Speak. Chapter 962. That should be the case. He's also an important person from the South Sky Empire. Otherwise, Shang Tianfeng wouldn't have personally come and paid such a huge price, said Yenwu Jue. Interesting. Looks like the 9 Domain World is no longer the same 9 Domain World as before. It's not easy to capture an important person from the South Sky Empire, muttered Tan Tianpe. Then, how should I reply? Asked Yenwu Jue. Go back and tell Shang Tianfeng that we can protect the hostages. However, it's impossible to open up a path. If the 9 Domain World can attack, why would we need them? As for the price, you can discuss it. It's fine to be ruthless. The South Sky Empire is extremely rich, said Yen Tianpe without any hesitation. Let them bring the hostages in, nodded Yenwu Jue. Tell them that if a Saint King dares to enter the Wuji world, kill him, said Yen Tianpe. His words caused the space to tremble. But how do we contact the 9 Domain World? Asked Yenwu Jue. Easy. They've already arrived at the Wuji world. Moreover, he's a pretty good expert. Go to the Wuji City Lord's mansion and tell the various City Lord's manors to announce that I want to meet him. I don't have any ill intentions. I just want to exchange the hostages, said Yen Tianpe. Most v. New chapters versus Yen Wujua nodded and left the courtyard. The nine-domain world has risen. I can feel that the laws of the nine-domain world have been perfected. It's repelling and suppressing all the surrounding worlds. Moreover, there's a world lord, said Yen Tianpe to the woman opposite him. The nine-domain world has risen. The nine-domain world can actually withstand the great massacre calamity. Those who died can rest in peace. The veil on the woman's face was soaked with tears. I hope you don't hate me, said Yen Tianpe softly. I understand, nodded the woman. Night Sorrow couldn't go to the Wuji city because that was the core of the Wuji world. The Wuji world's world lord was there. If he got too close, he would be easily discovered. After keeping the map, Night Sorrow teleported to the Two Extreme City. He planned to find a chance to trick the guards of the teleportation array into the profound sky world. While strolling around the city, Night Sorrow saw the announcement from the city lord's mansion. The realm lord wanted to meet the people of the Nine Regions world to discuss the exchange of hostages. He had no ill intentions. Upon seeing this notice, Night Sorrow was a little stunned. However, he soon understood that someone had investigated him when he tore open space and entered the Wuji world. This meant that the Wuji world's realm master already knew that someone had come from the Nine Regions world. After thinking about it for a while, Night Sorrow felt that he could go. The words of a world sector lord carried enormous weight. However, Night Sorrow wasn't completely unprepared. Once again he returned to the spatial barrier. His main body entered the space-time pagoda and hid within the spatial barrier. Next, his soul avatar arrived at Everlasting City and headed straight for the City Lord's mansion. When the City Lord's mansion's men saw Night Sorrow, they immediately went into a state of alert. Night Sorrow of the Nine Regions world has seen the notice and has come to pay a visit to the limitless world lord. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards the black-robed old man who walked out of the City Lord's mansion. Please enter the City Lord's mansion and wait for a moment. The old man looked at Night Sorrow and said, Be more courteous. Bring him to me. A voice rang out in the air. Yes, Realm Lord. The black-robed old man bowed towards the air and gestured for Night Sorrow to enter. He was very shocked because Night Sorrow was a peak stage Saint King. Under the lead of the black-robed old man, Night Sorrow entered the courtyard where Yen Tianpe and the white-robed woman were playing chess. I am Yen Tianpe. Yen Tianpe introduced himself to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow of the Nine Regions world greets the Flame World Lord. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Yen Tianpe. Your soul clone is at the peak of the Saint King realm. Your bone age is a little special. Your true bone age is less than 100 years. Even if you include some illusions, your bone age is less than 1,000 years. You are a rare genius. Yen Tianpe looked at Night Sorrow and explained Night Sorrow's situation. The fact that I didn't come is a little disrespectful to the Flame World Lord. However, I have no choice. I have some concerns. Night Sorrow nodded. This Yen Tianpe spoke casually and wasn't overbearing. I didn't guess wrongly. You are the Realm Lord of the Nine Regions world. Young man, you are very capable. Have a seat. If I said I have no ill intentions, then I have no ill intentions. Yen Tianpe gestured for Yi Shiwen to enter. Night Sorrow nodded and sat down. Since the other party had no ill intentions, they had to talk. The Nine Regions world won the great massacre calamity that occurs once every 10,000 years, right? Yen Tianpe poured a cup of water for Night Sorrow and asked. They won. They killed all of them and captured the Prince of the Sky South Empire. However, they want to exchange the captured clansmen of our Night Clan. They are clansmen who entered the Sky Profound world in the past. Night Sorrow said, Could it be that 100 years ago, your Nine Regions world used the Wuji world to enter the Sky Profound world? Yen Tianpe thought for a while and said, It should be. I'm not very clear about the details. I have never seen this ancestor before. Night Sorrow said, You haven't seen him before. It seems that I didn't see wrongly. Your true age is very young. Let's put it this way. I also don't like the Sky South Empire. They used resources to ask me for help and wanted to exchange hostages in the Wuji world. They want me to guarantee the safety of the exchange. Are you willing to exchange? After all, the Prince of the Sky South Empire is more valuable. Yen Tianpe looked at Night Sorrow and asked, I am willing. In my eyes, the Prince of the Sky South Empire is not as important as a strand of hair from my Night clan. However, if it's the main resources of the Flame World, I might not have them. Night Sorrow expressed his attitude. I like this attitude of yours. I don't want your resources, I just want theirs. In that case, you can go and prepare. It doesn't matter if this sovereign comes. This sovereign won't have any thoughts about you. If I did, I would have attacked your 9 regions world long ago. Yen Tianpe laughed. Many thanks, Flame World Master. Here are 2 jugs of wine to express my gratitude. Night Sorrow took out 2 jugs of wine and placed them on the table. He then turned and left. Seeing Night Sorrow leave, the veiled woman stood up. Is this the youth of the 9 regions world? His soul clone is at the peak of the Saint King realm. His body is filled with blood chi and his laws rippled. When I tried to investigate, I was directly dissolved. He's very strong. Yen Tianpe said. Tianpe, don't stop me from going back. I must go back. The woman looked at Yen Tianpe and said, I won't stop you anymore. I didn't let you go back a few years ago because I was worried about your safety. However, you should wait until the exchange of hostages is completed. I can also go with you to the 9 regions world to take a look. Yen Tianpe said. That won't do. You are the realm master of the Wuji world and your clone is currently busy. It will be dangerous for your main body to go. The white-clothed woman said. You don't see people as good as me. Night Sorrow looked straight at me and didn't have any evil aura. He's not that kind of person. Yen Tianpe said. Speak. Chapter 963. If he comes again, I'll talk to him. Hiding here while the 9 regions world is in danger, I don't have the face to face him, said the white-robed woman. I don't have the face to do what I should do for you. It's enough, said Yen Tianpe. After Night Sorrow's soul avatar met up with his main body, he returned to the 9 regions world and went to Sky City. Why are you back so quickly? Aoi looked at Night Sorrow in astonishment. Things have come to an end. I'm here to bring someone back. Yi Shan explained the situation in the Wuji world. It shouldn't be a problem. If a world master goes back on his word, it would be immoral. He wouldn't do such a thing, said Wu Lingfei. Then let's just wait for the news, said Night Sorrow. At this time, Night Sorrow arrived at the place where Shang Jingchun was imprisoned. There's progress in the exchange of hostages. Now enter my spatial treasure. We'll go to Sky City, said Night Sorrow to Shang Jingchun. I'm not going to enter your spatial treasure, said Shang Jingchun. You're not afraid that I'll deal with you. The main thing is that it's inconvenient to go to Sky City's spatial turbulence. If you don't want to enter, then let your father send someone to bring the hostages to the 9 regions world, said Night Sorrow. He didn't believe that Shang Jingchun could persist. Wait. Shang Jingchun hesitated for a moment before calling out to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow took out the space-time pagoda and put Shang Jingchun and his maid into the bottom level of the space-time pagoda. After that, Night Sorrow greeted a group of people and left Sky City. After arriving at Nanli Region's spatial barrier, he passed through it and entered Sky City. After arriving at the nearest city, Night Sorrow teleported to Sky City. In the courtyard, Yen Tianpe and the white-robed woman were talking about something. With the protection of the world energy, this is the true body. Let's sit down and talk. There are still many things to talk about. Of course, it's not me, it's her. Yen Tianpe pointed at the veiled white-clothed woman to Night Sorrow. Su Dao greets Sector Lord. The white-clothed woman bowed slightly towards Night Sorrow. You know me, Su Dao? Night Sorrow was astonished. Then have you heard of the Void Dao Saint King? The white-clothed woman took off her veil, revealing her delicate face. A Saint King of the Void Path is a sage from 10,000 years ago. Wait, are you his descendant? Night Sorrow asked the woman. She was also a mid-level Saint King. No, I am Lin Ruoxu. 10,000 years ago in the heaven-sealing Great Hall, I obtained the title of Void Dao. The woman looked at Night Sorrow and said, You are a senior Saint King of the Void Path? Night Sorrow looked at the woman in shock. As the woman spoke, Night Sorrow was stunned. His heart was moved. He bowed deeply towards the woman. Saint King of the Void Path has suffered. Junior Night Sorrow is here to bring you home, to our home. At this moment, Night Sorrow understood everything. That year when the Saint King of the Void Path self-detonated, his soul fell into the turbulence of the shattered space. He was saved by Yen Tianpe, who was watching the battle. Because he was heavily injured, he was in a deep sleep for many years. He woke up 300 years ago, and with Yen Tianpe's help, he used heavenly treasures to reconstruct his body. All right, after you are done with your matters, I will go back with you. Lin Ruoxu said. Many thanks to Flame World Lord for taking care of the Sage of the Nine Regions world. In the future, if Flame World Lord needs anything, just send a message to Night Sorrow. I will definitely not reject you. Night Sorrow said. World Lord Night is very capable. I admire you. How about this? I will not stop World Lord Night from moving around the Wuji world. If I go to the Nine Regions world, don't have any ideas. Yen Tianpe said. Naturally, there is no problem. The Nine Regions world will always welcome Flame World Lord as a guest. Night Sorrow said. Following which, Night Sorrow stayed in the Nine Regions world under Yen Tianpe's arrangements. Lin Ruoxu kept asking Night Sorrow about the Nine Regions world. Night Sorrow explained everything to him. If World Lord was born 10,000 years earlier, then Clear Sky Saint King and Central Continent Saint King wouldn't have to die in battle. This is the regret of our generation. This time, I didn't return in time. I hope World Lord won't blame me. Lin Ruoxu sighed and said, World Lord Knight, you can't blame me. Ruoxu didn't return because she hasn't recovered to the peak of the Saint King realm. There isn't much meaning for her to return. I was the one who stopped her. Yen Tianpe said. How can I have any thoughts? Void Dao Saint King is the sage of our Nine Regions world. Everyone remembers him. Also, Central Continent Saint King is regretful. Clear Sky Saint King has already reincarnated. He is doing very well now. He also participated in this war. Night Sorrow said. He could see that Lin Ruoxu missed Clear Sky Saint King and Central Continent Saint King. Brother Qianhua is still here. Lin Ruoxu stood up and said emotionally. Yes, he has already reincarnated. Night Sorrow nodded. World Lord Night, do your things. Ruoxu won't return. Yen Tianpe said. That's my brother. What are you thinking? Lin Ruoxu glanced at Yen Tianpe and frowned. I didn't say anything just now. Yen Tianpe laughed. At this time, Night Sorrow also understood what was going on. He also laughed. He felt that this matter was pretty good. Night Sorrow rested in the courtyard that Yen Tianpe prepared for him. He couldn't cultivate now because he had reached a bottleneck. If he couldn't touch the will of heaven and earth, he wouldn't be able to enter the king realm. As for Yen Tianpe, Night Sorrow knew that he was a big shot in the king realm because he couldn't see his cultivation. Every day, Yen Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu would look for Night Sorrow to drink tea and chat. The others were all pirated copies. World Lord Knight, with your situation, you have to go to the Sky Profound world or other worlds to have a chance of breaking through. Back then, I also secretly went to the Sky Profound world to break through my bottleneck. However, you have to be careful. The worlds don't have human feelings. Everything is about benefits. Yen Tianpe said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that this was priceless advice. Half a month later, the Black Robe Yenwu Absolute came. World Lord, the matter is settled. We asked them for 300 Saint Spirit stones. They felt the pain but agreed. Their people and hostages are in the Two Extreme City. Yenwu Absolute said to Yen Tianpe. Let them bring their people to the plaza of the Sky-Bearing Palace and wait. Tell them that this time, we are exchanging hostages. If they dare to make a move, I will definitely kill them. Moreover, I will kill my way to their nest. Yen Tianpe said. Domineering and overbearing. Night Sorrow knew that Yen Tianpe had the qualifications. He and Shang Tianfeng were both big shots in the king realm. Yen Tianpe had an advantage. He had a world of his own. He could send his clones out to fight. His original body was immortal. If he fought unscrupulously, the Sky South Empire wouldn't be able to withstand it. World Lord Knight, don't make a move. If you do, it will be hard for me. If you want to fight, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Yen Tianpe said to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow understands. I will not make things difficult for World Lord Flame. Night Sorrow nodded. Speak. Chapter 964. Not long after, Yen Tianpe nodded towards Yishang. Their people have arrived. Realm Lord Yi, you can bring your people over. I won't show my face. Broxu, you follow them. If they don't keep their word, you can kill them. Wu Ju and the others know you and will cooperate with you. Okay, then we'll go. Lin Ruoxu nodded to Yen Tianpe. Night Sorrow also brought Shang Jingchun and the female saint out of the pagoda. Shang Jingchun's limbs had already recovered. As a peak saint king, a little external injury was nothing. Night Sorrow and Lin Ruoxu brought their people to the sky-bearing palace. Night Sorrow saw many people in front of the palace. There were people from the Tianan dynasty holding Yi Tian down. Since you're exchanging hostages in the Wuji world, you have to follow our rules. You have to hand the hostages over to us. Before that, you have to remove the tricks you used on the hostages. Although you're a peak Saint King, you have to be honest. Remember, Saint Kings don't have the right to be arrogant in the Wuji world. Yen Wujue looked around and his gaze landed on Shang Jingchun. Yishang retracted Shang Jingchun's void true qi from the Saintess Dantian and glared at Yishang. Shang Jingchun walked over to the guards of the Everlasting World's City Lord's mansion. He didn't dare to act rashly. This was the Everlasting City. Peak Saint Kings didn't have the right to be arrogant. This was the Everlasting World's world. The Tianan dynasty also handed Yi Tian over to the City Lord's mansion's guards. Do you think there's a problem? If there's no problem, you can return to your own camp, said Yen Wujue. Shang Jingchun and Yi Tian knew whether there was a problem or not. They both returned to their own camps. Night Sorrow, the enmity between us isn't over. I'll definitely destroy the 9 regions world. Shang Jingchun looked at Night Sorrow coldly. This was a great humiliation to him. He knew that Shang Tianfeng had saved him because of their father-son relationship. But if he didn't do it well, it would be impossible for him to have any power in the Tianan dynasty in the future. You want to fight? Then you can tell everyone in the everlasting world that our battle to the death has nothing to do with anyone. Do you dare? Night Sorrow looked coldly at Shang Jingchun. Let's go. Shang Jingchun coldly snorted and left with his people. How would he dare to fight? He knew that if he was not a king-tier cultivator, he would not be a match for Night Sorrow. He had witnessed Night Sorrow's battle prowess with his own eyes. The 2 peak stage Saint Kings that he had brought along and Kui Long had all been killed by Night Sorrow. Remember, if I can take care of you once, I can take care of you twice. You better not fall into my hands because next time, you won't have a chance to live, Night Sorrow said. Shang Jingchun left without looking back. No matter how he fought back, it was useless. Night Sorrow had asked him if he dared to fight, and he had nothing else to say. Many thanks. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Yen Wujue and the others. Ours aversion, World Lord Knight is too polite. Yen Wujue cupped his hands towards Night Sorrow. After that, Night Sorrow and Lin Ruoxu brought Yi Tian back to the courtyard that Yen Tianpe had arranged for them. Moon Empress, you've suffered. Night Sorrow bowed to Yi Tian. It's nothing. Without your help, I would still be in their cage. Yi Tian shook his head. Moon Empress, my grandfather is Yi Linghuan. I'm your junior, said Night Sorrow. Linghuan's grandson? You're Linghuan's grandson? Yi Tian was a bit emotional. Back in the cage, he had been muddle-headed and hadn't heard the conversation between Yi Linghuan and Night Sorrow. Just rest for a while, and then we'll return to the 9 regions world. Night Sorrow looked at Yi Tian. Yi Tian's cultivation base was still at the peak of the Saint Realm. Because he had been imprisoned after leaving the 9 regions world, his cultivation base hadn't advanced. There's no need. I'm in good condition. Yi Tian said. All right. Senior, are you coming back with me? Night Sorrow nodded towards Yi Tian and then looked at Lin Ruoxu. Yes, I'll go with you. Lin Ruoxin nodded. I'll go too. Yen Tianpa also spoke. Then the group left the everlasting city. After a few teleportation arrays, they arrived at the spatial barrier of the 9 regions world. Let's set up a teleportation array in the future. That way, we can teleport directly. Flying from Flying Cloud City is really troublesome, said Yen Tianpa. Night Sorrow didn't say anything. This was a matter of the everlasting city. He couldn't interfere. Soon after, Night Sorrow's energy enveloped Yi Tian. Yen Tianpa brought Lin Ruoxu along as he tore through space and traversed through the chaotic flow of space. Soon, the group arrived at the spatial barrier of the 9 regions world. Night Sorrow tore through space and entered the 9 regions world. However, there was a problem. Yen Tianpa couldn't enter. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't enter the 9 regions world. The area he tried to break through was the spatial turbulence. The 9 regions world kept rejecting him. Night Sorrow controlled the 9 regions world's source energy to stabilize the space. At the same time, he communicated with the 9 regions origin pearl. Only then did Yen Tianpa enter the 9 regions world. The laws of the 9 regions world are too strong. If it weren't for your control, I wouldn't have been able to enter. Yen Tianpa turned around and looked at the spatial barrier. Now that Saint Kings can't enter the 9 regions world, it can be said that the 9 regions world is very safe. Night Sorrow said, "It seems that the 9 regions world is of a higher level than the everlasting city. The everlasting city can only resist King Realm cultivators. It can't stop Saint Kings from entering." Yen Tianpa looked up at the sky of the 9 regions world and said, Then, Night Sorrow led the group to the city in the sky. "This is my home. Elder Ling Lan, go to Night Moon City and inform them that Lord Moon Empress has returned. Also, ask the Divine Moon Emperor to bring Senior Qianhua here. Tell them that we are meeting with old friends." Night Sorrow instructed Yi Ling Lan. Following this, Yi Shang led everyone to his own residence. Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing both came to greet him. Yi Tian had never seen Yi Wuyo before, but he was very happy to see a junior at this time. "Moon Empress great ancestor, these are my 3 wives." Night Sorrow introduced his wives to Yi Tian. Yi Tian was very excited because Night Moon had a successor. While everyone was chatting, Night Moon's emperor and Yi Qianhua came. Night Moon's emperors and Yi Linghuan all knelt down to greet Yi Tian. Yi Qianhua's eyes were fixed on Lin Ruoxu. After Night Moon finished greeting, he opened his mouth. "Are you little sister Ruoxu?" I am brother Qianhua. I am Ruoxu." Lin Ruoxu's face was crying. The battle that year was too tragic. The 3 Saint Kings who were as close as brothers never met again. Then, Night Sorrow stood up and told everyone about Lin Ruoxu's identity. At this time, everyone present bowed. Because the Void Dao Saint King was a hero of the 9 regions world. He was a senior and had to be respected. Also, let me introduce this person. He is a friend of the Void Dao Saint King, the Flame World Lord of the Everlasting City. Next, we can be friends with the Everlasting City. This way, it won't be a problem if we want to go to the mysterious Sky World. Night Sorrow said, "Say." Chapter 965. Everyone cupped their hands. The World Master of a world had a noble status. After chatting for a while, Night Moon's people brought Yi Tian away. Yi Wuyo and his wife also went over. However, Night Sorrow didn't go. He was still accompanying Yen Tianpa and Lin Ruoxu. In addition, Night Sorrow didn't have any feelings for Yi Tian. He had only seen him once in the previous battle. This was only the second time. "Your place isn't bad. Give us a place to stay. Ruoxu, bring me around," said Yen Tianpa. "Sure. But can you see if you can set up a world transfer array? That way, it'll be more convenient for our 9 regions world to communicate with the Wuji world," said Lin Ruoxu. "Since you've asked, of course. I just happen to have 2 world transfer crystals. We can set them up. Our 2 worlds are close to each other. We can set them up in large cities. That's convenient. But for safety we have to guard them well. That way, we can avoid some trouble," said Yen Tianpa. "Then I'll have to trouble World Master," said Night Sorrow with a smile. It's nothing. Sometimes, I'm very unyielding. But sometimes, I have to compromise, said Yen Tianpe. You're speaking nonsense again. World Master Knight, World Master Flame, and I will just walk around. We haven't seen the 9 regions world for 10,000 years. Lin Ruoxu stood up. Then, Lin Ruoxu and Yen Tianpe left. Night Sorrow, what's going on? Asked Yang Lei. That's the situation. You should know, said Night Sorrow with a smile. Then, everyone laughed. Now that Yi Tian was rescued, Night Sorrow didn't have any pressure. He could truly settle down. Night Sorrow brought his 3 wives, Xue Shi and Father Gu, to the lake to drink tea and chat. Tianyu, Yi Mei and the God-slaying team had all gone out to train. They were all improving their combat strength. Night Sorrow, I told you when you were young that you had to be responsible. However, you almost got into trouble. Is it appropriate for you to let Miss Xue Shi follow you like this? Old Man Gu looked at Night Sorrow and said, Dad, this isn't Night Sorrow's problem. I just think this is good. Xue Shi pulled her father's arm and said, Sigh, then you guys handle it yourselves. Old Man Gu sighed. There were some things that he couldn't understand. Pops, you have to work hard and strive for Type 5. Night Sorrow looked at Papa Gu and took out some Origin Spiritual Liquid and Life Spiritual Liquid for him. Father Gu nodded. He knew that Night Sorrow didn't need him to have much combat strength. He just needed him to have a high cultivation and a long lifespan. In the following days, Night Sorrow was very relaxed. He spent every day with his 3 wives and Xue Shi. Night Sorrow did not know why Xue Shi insisted. As long as Xue Shi asked, he would give her a name. On this day, when Night Sorrow was drinking tea, Yen Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu returned to Sky City. Realm Lord Knight's life is not bad. However, you still have to pursue something. Go to Sky Profound World or other large worlds and find a place where there is no one and slowly cultivate. After entering the King Realm, you can come back and cultivate slowly. At that time, you can send a soul clone out and do big things. Yen Tianpe looked at Night Sorrow and said, I will spend this time with my family. Night Sorrow said, You did well in this aspect. Much better than me. When I was cultivating, my family left me one by one. It was very sad. Yen Tianpe said, Don't think so much. Aren't you doing well now? Lin Ruoxu poured a cup of tea for Yen Tianpe and said, The only original is V, the other is Q, Y is a pirated copy. What's so good about it? Realm Lord Knight has 3 wives. I am still single. Yen Tianpe said and looked at Lin Ruoxu. Senior, don't call me Realm Lord Knight. My name is Night Sorrow. You can call me by my name. The same goes for Void Dao Saint King. You are a senior of the 9-domain world. You can call me by my name in the future. Night Sorrow said, Void Dao Saint King, don't call me that. That was in the past. However, what is more suitable for you to call me? Lin Ruoxu said, How about this, Night Sorrow? Don't call me Flame Realm Lord. I am older than you. If you don't mind, you can call me Uncle. As for her, there will be a suitable name in the future. Yen Tianpe said with a smile. All right. Since the 2 of you are my seniors, I will call you Uncle and Aunt. Night Sorrow said. That's right. That's much more comfortable. Kid, work harder. When you enter the King Realm, we will go to the Sky Profound World and wreak havoc. The Sky Profound World is too shameless. Yen Tianpe was very happy and spoke his thoughts. They always think that they are better than others. They even use the saint crystals of our world's cultivators as materials. This is simply intolerable. Thinking of the Sky Profound World's actions, Night Sorrow was also very angry. In the past, the Everlasting World was the same. That's why Uncle also hates them. However, we were alone and could not defeat them. Yen Tianpe said. Night Sorrow nodded. He could also understand. When the Everlasting World did not have a World Master, it was also a subsidiary world that was bullied. After chatting for a while, Night Sorrow and Yen Tianpe went to set up the Realm Transmission Array. The 2 of them discussed for a while and felt that it was better to keep the Realm Transmission Array a secret. There was no need to open it to the public. A limited number of people could teleport it. In the end, They decided to set it up in the side halls of the Sky City and the Sky-bearing Palace. Night Sorrow set up the transmission array in the loft next to his residence. After that, Yen Tianpa placed the transmission crystal and another transmission crystal's split body. Looking at the transmission crystal, Night Sorrow knew that it was an extremely expensive top-grade transmission crystal. The realm transmission crystal could be used to teleport across realms. Of course, it could only be used between realms that were relatively close to each other. After that, Night Sorrow and Yen Tianpa went to the Everlasting World. They set up a transmission array in the side hall of the Sky-bearing Palace and set up the transmission crystal. As the transmission crystal lit up, the 9-domain world and the Everlasting World could be officially teleported. Let's go. I'll introduce you to some people. Yen Tianpa brought Night Sorrow into the Sky-bearing Palace. Greetings, Realm Master. Everyone in the Sky-bearing Palace bowed. All of you listen up. From today onwards, only I, Realm Master Knight and Lin Xing King can enter the side hall where the transmission array was set up. Anyone else who approaches will be killed. Without even taking the main seat, Yen Tianpa gave the order. After Yen Tianpa finished speaking, everyone in the palace bowed and accepted the order. Remember this realm Lord Yi. Right now, he is also this lord's nephew. You should know what this lord means. Yen Tianpa patted Yi Shang's shoulder. After hearing Yen Tianpo's words, everyone in the hall bowed towards Yi Shang and greeted him as young master. Night Sorrow also cupped his fists towards everyone and returned the greeting. All right, let's go and have a drink. After that, we'll go to the Sky Profound World's 2 extreme city to take a look. Yen Tianpa was in high spirits. He was indeed happy about the recent events. Speak. Third watch. Chapter 966. In the eyes of those who didn't know them, Night Sorrow and Yen Tianpo were just 2 ordinary people. Once they entered the Saint King realm, they would be able to return to their original state. At their realm, their auras wouldn't leak out at all. After finding a restaurant, Yi Shang took out the wine he had brought. The 2 of them ate some dishes and chatted casually. Night Sorrow, how much do you know about the king's realm? After drinking a mouthful of wine, Yen Tianpa looked at Night Sorrow and asked, I don't know much about it. I just know that one needs to comprehend the will of heaven and earth, which is the true meaning of the heavenly way. As for how to comprehend it, I don't have any idea. Night Sorrow really didn't have any clue, and there was nothing he could hide. Permanent exemption from fees. In the 9-domain world, it wasn't easy for you to grow to this level. I was able to reach this level because of the help of a senior. Today, I also hope to be able to help you. Yen Tianpo's thoughts drifted a little. Then many thanks, uncle. Night Sorrow said. I was distracted. It's mainly because I missed that senior. There are many types of true meaning of the heavenly way, and they are also divided into different levels. Every king's realm cultivator can comprehend different things. For example, the true meaning of thick earth is easier for earth attribute cultivators to come into contact with. The true meaning of profound fire is the path for fire attribute cultivators to walk. There are also some special true meanings, such as slaughter intent, sword intent, saber intent, and so on that don't exist in the attribute. Yen Tianpa patiently explained to Night Sorrow. With Yen Tianpo's explanation, Night Sorrow understood a little. There were many types of true meaning of the heavenly way, and it could even be said that there was no way to understand them all, because a true meaning that didn't appear could appear at any time. When comprehending a true meaning, one couldn't deliberately pursue a specific type because it would be difficult to comprehend if it didn't fit. What one needed to do was to let nature take its course. The king's realm cultivators were also divided into 9 levels. For example, if one comprehended the true meaning of profound fire, they would be in the 1-star king's realm. If one comprehended 3 parts, they would be in the 3-star king's realm. After entering the king's realm, the increase in cultivation was mainly dependent on one's comprehension ability. If one's comprehension ability was high, then they would be able to comprehend true intent quickly and quickly. Only then would their cultivation be able to increase along with their realm. In other words, once you enter the king realm, the bottleneck will always be there. You won't be able to continuously increase your cultivation base, said Night Sorrow. That's right. With each step, there's a bottleneck. With each step, there's a ladder to the heavens. Even though we're all King Realm cultivators, there's still a huge gap between us. The senior who guided me was killed by another King Realm cultivator because his realm wasn't very high. However, I don't have the ability to avenge him. Yen Tianpe sighed. In such a situation, Night Sorrow was also helpless. He couldn't help Yen Tianpe in any way. Whenever you go to the Sky Profound World, just find a place where the Heavenly Tao's influence is stronger. After that, just cultivate in seclusion. Remember, don't have too much contact with others. Killing is everywhere. Unless you have a very strong backer, but we don't. Yen Tianpe said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that Yen Tianpe's words were priceless advice. He had also walked step by step to reach this point. After that, Yen Tianpe brought Night Sorrow to Two Pole City to let Night Sorrow experience a mature world. There are many worlds on the same level as the Sky Profound World. Furthermore, they're all connected by teleportation arrays. When the time comes, you can choose a suitable place to cultivate. Yen Tianpe said to Night Sorrow. This world is indeed mature. It has a grand aura that our 9 regions world doesn't have. Night Sorrow expressed his feelings. A mature world has countless years of growth. It's not something a new world can compare to. Yen Tianpe smiled. Back then, when he had just left the everlasting world, he also had the same feeling. After drinking, they walked around and introduced Night Sorrow to the upper echelons of the everlasting world in Two Pole City. After that, Yen Tianpe and Night Sorrow returned to the everlasting world and teleported to the city in the sky. In the following period of time, Night Sorrow accompanied his family. Yen Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu walked around the 9 regions world. However, Yen Tianpe was only in the 9 regions world. There were some spatial barriers that he couldn't pass through. 2 months later, Yen Tianpe bid farewell to Night Sorrow. He came to accompany Lin Ruoxu. Lin Ruoxu saw the situation in the 9 regions world and felt very at ease. The two of them planned to return to the everlasting world. After Yen Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu left, Night Sorrow also planned to move. He needed to charge towards the King Realm. If he didn't leave the 9 regions world, he wouldn't have the chance to enter the King Realm. The Sky Profound World was too dangerous. Night Sorrow didn't bring anyone with him. At the same time, he left the time-space pagoda behind. He wanted to comprehend the true intent of heaven and earth. The time-space pagoda's acceleration was ineffective. To comprehend the true intent of heaven and earth, one had to be in direct contact with heaven and earth. After greeting his family, Night Sorrow took the teleportation array to the everlasting city. After passing through the everlasting city, Night Sorrow teleported to the Two Pole City in the Sky Profound World. When he arrived at the Two Pole City, Night Sorrow found an inn to stay in. He bought a map and understood the Sky Profound World. He wouldn't act rashly. As he understood, Night Sorrow understood some of the situation in the Sky Profound World. The Sky Profound World was too big. It was 1,000 times the size of the 9 regions world. It was imaginable that there were countless forces. The structure of the forces and forces were different. Sects, clans, alliances, etc. Those with a King Realm expert were peak forces. Those with a peak stage Saint King were second-class forces. Those below third-class forces would have to rely on the major forces to survive. This was the structure of the forces in the Sky Profound World. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow also understood why a second-class force with a peak stage Saint King could exist under the pressure of a peak force. It was true that a top-notch force could easily devour a second-rate force, but if a peak stage Saint King escaped, that crazy revenge would be very difficult to bear. Moreover, who knew which peak stage Saint King would suddenly become enlightened and enter the sovereign King Realm? This was a kind of invisible energy, and also a small deterrent. Night Sorrow pondered for a while. He felt that his original body could find a place to cultivate while his clone could go out and explore. He could also look for resources. After having this idea, Night Sorrow took action. He wanted to find a place with a vile environment to cultivate. Night Sorrow's target was the Splitting Wind Cliff, which was some distance away from the Everlasting City. There were spatial cracks there and the spatial storms were the strongest. If he wanted to enter the King Realm, he had to choose the true meaning of the will of heaven and earth. Night Sorrow wanted to choose a place that was compatible with his attribute. There were too few places where the will of heaven and earth manifested with the void attribute and time attribute. He could only take a step back and look for the will of heaven and earth that was more compatible with his own laws to comprehend. After reaching the place, Night Sorrow finally understood why there were no forces occupying this place. It was mainly because it was too vile. This place had a very strong spatial attribute will of heaven and earth manifested. Spatial blades flew everywhere within a few thousand miles. If one's cultivation was not high enough, they would be torn apart. Feeling that this place was suitable, Night Sorrow planned to leave his original body here and use his clone to find another place where the will of heaven and earth manifested. He was naturally not satisfied with just comprehending one true meaning. The King Realm competed with the true meaning of the will of heaven and earth. If he had two true meanings, his battle prowess would be much stronger. In addition, he also wanted to go to the Tiannan dynasty to see if there were any movements from the Tiannan dynasty. Was there any movement against the Nine Domains world? Speak. Chapter 967. At this moment, Shang Tianfeng was sitting in the main seat in the Tiannan dynasty's main hall, his body still bathed in flames. The world overlord of the limitless realm is simply relying on the fact that his true body is undying and indestructible in his own world while his clones can roam the world outside. This subordinate will wait outside the limitless city. If he comes out, this subordinate will send a message to the Emperor Lord to kill him. Gong Yanglai spoke. All right, I'll have General Yuan follow you. His cultivation base is higher than yours, and he might be able to see through the limitless world's realm master's foundation. Even if his clone comes out, you'll be able to determine his cultivation base. His clone is the Azure Flood Dragon clan's clone technique, and it's the same level as his true body, said Shang Tianfeng. Gong Yanglai bowed to receive the order and left the main hall. Chunu, do you know you've made a mistake? Asked Shang Tianfeng. Only the two of them were left in the hall. I don't know. They're too strong, and my men aren't a match for them, said Shang Jingchun. You still don't understand. First, it's about status. What's Bo Qinghan's status? What's your status? Why didn't you send him? Why did you take the risk yourself? Asked Shang Jingchun. I understand. I won't make such a mistake in the future, said Shang Jingchun. Shang Tianfeng looked at Shang Jingchun, then left the hall. Night Sorrow's true body was meditating outside Windbreaker Cliff. His spiritual strength was enveloping the Windbreaker Cliff's spatial wind blades as he comprehended the will of heaven and earth. His soul avatar could not cultivate the true meaning of heaven and earth as it walked around the profound heaven world. Hence, it had to understand the situation better. Yi Shang was not worried about his safety. His clone had the cultivation of a peak holy king and had the supreme attribute. It also had 90% of the original body's battle prowess. As long as it did not meet any sovereign king cultivators, it would not be in any danger. Night Sorrow had bought many books with anecdotes. He wanted to learn more from them. Night Sorrow's understanding of the Heaven Profound world increased. The Heaven Profound world's level was much, much higher than the Nine Regions world. Not to mention other things, just in terms of alchemist grade, alchemist grandmasters could not keep up with the pace. In the profound sky world, there were saint-grade alchemists who could refine saint-grade pills. Above them, there were also saint-king-grade alchemists. The ancient records even recorded the pinnacle of alchemists, the king-grade alchemists. Night Sorrow sighed. He knew that he knew a lot, but the inheritance was a big problem. He didn't have an alchemy inheritance that could support his advancement in alchemy. The alchemy inheritance that Feng Chen had passed down could only allow him to cultivate until he became an alchemy grandmaster. After pondering for a moment, Night Sorrow felt that he could seal a part of his cultivation and find an alchemy sect to study alchemy. His soul avatar didn't have any comprehension of the will of heaven and earth, so it couldn't assist in cultivation. However, it could still cultivate alchemy, artifact forging, and array formations. Genuine K. After studying the Book of Anecdotes for a while, Yishang decided to go to the Heavenly Cauldron sect to study alchemy. The Tianding Gate was a top force that was famous for alchemy and artifact forging. The Gate Master was the Tianding King. Knight Sorrow felt that since the Tianding Gate was so big, he might not be discovered. After all, he had the ability to return to his original state. In addition, there was the suppression of the rules of nothingness. Not everyone could see the depth of his strength. If he met the Tianding King, his luck would be very bad. With this idea in mind, Knight Sorrow took the teleportation array and rushed to the Tianding city. Then, he teleported to the Tianding mountain. At this time, the cultivation that Knight Sorrow displayed was that of a mid-level venerable. If his cultivation was too low, he wouldn't be valued and wouldn't be able to obtain a high-level alchemy inheritance. Once again, he was going to enter a sect to learn alchemy. Knight Sorrow felt quite emotional. Everything that happened in the Medicine Valley was still vivid in his mind. Knight Sorrow came at the right time. When he arrived, it was the day of the Tianding Gate's Disciple Recruitment Hall. The Tianding Gate's disciple recruitment was very strict. If one didn't have a stage 4 cultivation or a mid-level alchemy master, they wouldn't accept him. When it was Knight Sorrow's turn, the old man in charge of registration nodded at Knight Sorrow. A very young mid-level venerable. The Tianding Gate doesn't mind learning from a master. What's your alchemy cultivation level? Greetings, Elder. Knight Sorrow has some foundation in alchemy. However, because I don't have anyone to guide me, I want to enter the Tianding Gate. Knight Sorrow cupped his hands at the old man. All right, as long as you have the foundation, I'll let you register first. There will be an assessment later. If you have the foundation and have the talent for alchemy, there won't be a problem. The old man smiled and nodded. Knight Sorrow had the power of the world and the ability to return to his original state. He gave off a very good feeling. Thank you, Elder. Knight Sorrow finished speaking and went to the side to wait. After everyone finished registering, the alchemy assessment began. Of course, there were also alchemy assessment. The Tianding Gate's auxiliary skills were alchemy and alchemy. This time, they were accepting disciples with auxiliary skills. Normally, they would accept disciples with cultivation skills after a year. Then it was the assessment. Knight Sorrow brought his alchemy furnace and took the spirit distraction pill from the Tianding Gate's preparation materials. He casually refined it. Knight Sorrow didn't want to be too ostentatious. He just wanted to enter the sect and cultivate alchemy. However, he didn't dare to be too low-key. If he didn't pass, they wouldn't accept him. Looking at Knight Sorrow, the old man nodded. Your concoction technique is a bit low. However, without anyone to guide you, it's not easy for you to reach this level. You pass. Knight Sorrow nodded at the old man. He was very satisfied to be able to enter the sect. After the disciple recruitment ceremony ended, Knight Sorrow and a group of people were brought to the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain by the old man. Subsequently, the various elders came to select disciples. The first person to select a disciple was Knight Sorrow. This was a young woman that looked to be around 30 years old, and she selected a few others. Knight Sorrow followed this young woman to a mountain called West Hua Mountain. I'm West Radiance Peak's Jing Lan. All of you are now nominal disciples of the West Radiance Peak. You can become official disciples when you become an alchemy grandmaster and can refine mid-grade grade 6 medicinal pills. The middle-aged woman, Jing Lan, said to them. After arriving at the West Radiance Peak, Knight Sorrow slowly understood some things. The West Radiance Peak's position in the Tianding Gate was very awkward. The Peak Master, Chu Danxian, didn't like to communicate with others, so her relationship with the others in the Tianding Gate wasn't very good. It could even be said that she was ostracized everywhere. Knight Sorrow knew that relationships were needed everywhere. In the past, when the Tianding Gate recruited disciples, it was always the West Radiance Peak's turn to pick the leftovers. This time, the elder that was in charge of recruiting disciples had a good personal relationship with Chu Danxian, so he allowed Jing Lan to choose first. Besides that, Knight Sorrow also noticed that the disciples of the West Radiance Peak were very undisciplined and lacked spirit. But Night Sorrow didn't care about all this. What he cared about was who he wanted to learn alchemy from. Even if there was no one to teach him, he had to be provided with a book on alchemy, otherwise, how would he learn? After staying for a few days, Night Sorrow asked someone, and then he found out that the new disciples hadn't taken the oath of entrance and were unable to formally learn alchemy. Fortunately, it wasn't long before someone brought Night Sorrow and a few new disciples to the West Radiance Pavilion and took the oath of not betraying the Tianding Gate. With the oath of entrance, Night Sorrow possessed some authority, and that was the ability to enter the treasury to look for books to read. On this day, when Night Sorrow was studying books, he was shouted out by someone. "The person that's lacking an assistant is you. Speak." Chapter 968. She was also a young woman that looked to be around 20 years old. Since she had called for him to be her assistant, Night Sorrow could only follow along. Night Sorrow followed the young woman to a pill refinement room. There were two people standing guard outside the pill refinement room. The young woman brought Night Sorrow into the pill refinement room. "Master, I went to look for someone else, but they all said they were busy, so I casually grabbed someone and brought them over," said the young woman. Which elder are you following? What's your current level in pill refinement?" asked the young woman in a blue dress. "I just entered the sect, and I haven't followed any elder," said Night Sorrow. "Tang Yuan, this is the supplementary material for the 5-spirit pill that you found as an assistant. You must be a high-grade pill refiner to refine it." The young woman in a blue dress glared at Tang Yuan. "High-grade pill refiner? I think I can do it," said Night Sorrow. "Then refine a grade 5 medicinal pill for me to see." The young woman in a blue dress nodded. "Look small, speak small. Speak." Night Sorrow found the materials for the clear void pill in the pill refinement room and refined a cauldron of clear void pills. Holding the medicinal pill that Night Sorrow refined, the young woman looked at it seriously for a moment before nodding, and then she tossed a piece of paper that was filled with supplementary materials to Night Sorrow. "Not bad. Take a look at the supplementary materials for the refinement first. You can't make any mistakes when the time comes." Night Sorrow looked at it and nodded. He knew that she might be refining a high-grade medicinal pill, and it was already good that he could follow along. "Go back and study it. Come back 3 days later. Tang Yuan, go tell Elder Jing that he'll come over to Master's place in the future." After the young woman finished speaking, she didn't pay any more attention to Night Sorrow and went to study the medicinal pill materials that were placed at the side. Tang Yuan found Jing Lan and told him about Night Sorrow's arrangements. Night Sorrow was stunned when he heard this because the young woman in a blue dress was actually the peak master of the West Radiance Peak, Chu Danxian. However, Night Sorrow didn't say anything. Chu Danxian was a 6-star saint, so she wouldn't be able to see through his depth. As for Tang Yuan, she was named by Chu Danxian. In the past, her name was Ku Kai. Her parents died early and she lived like a stray dog. She was picked up by Chu Danxian, and because it was the Lantern Festival, she changed her name to Tang Yuan. For the next few days, Night Sorrow had been researching how to refine the 5-spirit pill. The 5-spirit pill was a 7th-level pill, and a high-grade one at that. It could allow a person to enter an ethereal state and increase the chances of returning to one's original state. After studying Night Sorrow for 2 days, he finally understood. On the 3rd day, Tang Yuan once again called for Night Sorrow. At this time, Night Sorrow was living in a separate courtyard not far from the pill refining room. After entering the pill refining room, Chu Danxian gave him a task. Tang Yuan was in charge of concocting the materials, Night Sorrow was in charge of refining the supplementary materials, and she was in charge of refining the main materials. Night Sorrow nodded. He didn't have any problems refining the 5th-level supplementary materials. After that, Chu Danxian started to refine the 5-spirit pill's main materials. Night Sorrow waited at the side. He understood Chu Danxuan's plan. She was worried that her pill flame and soul energy wouldn't be enough, so she got someone else to refine the supplementary materials. She was only in charge of refining the main materials and fusing them, as well as the steps of condensing the pill. This way, she could avoid some problems. Chu Danxian spoke very little and practically didn't communicate with Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan. Night Sorrow didn't mind this. He looked at Chu Danxuan's pill refining technique and compared it with what he saw in books. 2 hours later, Chu Danxian called out to Night Sorrow and asked Night Sorrow to start refining the supplementary materials. Be careful. If there's a problem, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Tang Yuan fiercely glared at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow just smiled. He didn't care about Tang Yuan's gaze. One's state of mind determined one's attitude. Night Sorrow felt that Tang Yuan only wanted to show off in front of Chu Danxian, so there was no need to care. Night Sorrow continuously refined all kinds of supplementary materials and then handed them to Chu Danxian to fuse with the main materials. The 5-spirit pill was a high-grade Saint-tier pill, and it was very complicated. Just the supplementary materials alone required over 20 kinds. But that wasn't a problem for Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow finished refining each of the supplementary materials in just a moment. Night Sorrow's technique was a bit rusty, but he was able to refine them in an orderly manner. Both Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan were flabbergasted. That was because Night Sorrow's refining speed was very fast. When the final supplementary material called green bamboo leaf juice was refined, Night Sorrow's work was completed. But at this time, a problem occurred. Chu Danxian failed to fuse the green bamboo leaf juice, and it didn't reach her expectations of condensing the pill. The green bamboo leaf juice couldn't perfectly fuse with the main materials and supplementary materials. Give me another portion of green bamboo leaf juice. Chu Danxian instructed Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan. Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan followed Chu Danxuan's instructions. Night Sorrow really wanted to say that Chu Danxian was a fraud. He had refined over 10 portions of green bamboo leaf juice, but Chu Danxian still hadn't succeeded. Night Sorrow knew that this batch of pills had failed. Because there was too much green bamboo leaf juice, it was impossible to successfully condense the pill. But Night Sorrow couldn't say that because a normal high-level alchemist wouldn't be able to discover it. After having Night Sorrow refine 2 more portions of green bamboo leaf juice, Chu Danxian gave up. She also knew that she had failed long ago, but she didn't want to give up. The price of this batch of pills was too high. Chu Danxian admitted that she had failed, and Night Sorrow left the alchemy room. How could it fail? Chu Danxuan's face was full of confusion. Could it be that the supplementary materials refined by that brat weren't good enough, causing the pill to fail? Tang Yuan immediately thought that it was Night Sorrow's problem. It's not his problem. The supplementary materials he refined were very pure. It could be said that there were no impurities. I don't know which part of the problem occurred. This assistance technique is a bit rusty, but his foundation is very solid. Chu Danxian said. Night Sorrow had continuously refined supplementary materials, and even after refining so many portions of green bamboo leaf juice, he still didn't feel it was strenuous. Chu Danxian wasn't a fool, so she should know Night Sorrow's strength. In the following days, Yi Shang studied alchemy every day. He had spirit stones on him, so he would often go out to buy medicinal ingredients and hone himself in alchemy. Sometimes, Chu Danxian would call Yi Shang to the alchemy room and ask him to refine some 5th-tier medicinal pills. The Heavenly Cauldron sect was famous for its medicinal pills and refining equipment, so they naturally had a medicinal pill business. In addition, they also needed their disciples to cultivate with medicinal pills. When Night Sorrow was refining pills, he got used to the Tianding Gate's alchemy techniques and reorganized his alchemy techniques. After all, there was a big gap between the Tianding Gate's inheritance and the sealed dust handbook. What made Night Sorrow unhappy was that Tang Yuan kept finding fault with him. Even Chu Danxian didn't like him and even used him as a coolie. When she had nothing to do, she would ask Night Sorrow to refine low-grade pills. This wasn't training at all, it was just hard work. In the past, Night Sorrow might not have tolerated this kind of thing, but now he didn't care. If he did, Night Sorrow could crush the 2 of them as easily as crushing a chicken. In the entire Tianding Gate, the only person stronger than Night Sorrow was the Tianding King. In addition, Night Sorrow knew that Tang Yuan, who used to be called Ku Kai, had some bad habits that were ingrained in her bones. Night Sorrow learned to ignore some low-level people. Usually, after completing the tasks that Chu Danxian gave him, Night Sorrow would use the ingredients he bought to refine pills. With the support of the ingredients, Night Sorrow's alchemy skills rose sharply. After 2 months, he became a high-level alchemy master and could aim to become a saint-level alchemy master. When Night Sorrow's clone was constantly studying alchemy, Night Sorrow's main body was still studying the will of the heavens. On this day, when Night Sorrow was refining pills in his residence, a guest came to his courtyard. Night Sorrow stood up to receive the guest. Speak. Chapter 969. The person who came was the old man who had accepted Night Sorrow into the Tianding Gate. Young man, are you used to it? The old man asked with a smile. Thank you for your concern, elder. Fortunately, I can be engrossed in alchemy every day. It's very suitable for this disciple. May I know how to address you, elder? Night Sorrow said. Good attitude. I don't remember my name, but you can call me Elder Xiang. Elder Xiang sat down and said. Night Sorrow took out a teapot, brewed a pot of tea, and poured a cup for the old man. Attitude determines vision and also determines one's achievements. Don't mind some small matters. You might suffer some grievances if I arrange for you to go to the West Radiance Peak, but if I don't arrange for someone to go to the West Radiance Peak, then the West Radiance Peak will decline. Elder Xiang said. Disciple understands. I won't mind. Night Sorrow looked at the old man who was only an intermediate saint and said, he had a good impression of this old man. Although his cultivation wasn't high, he had an extraordinary aura. He understood that if the old man didn't have some outstanding aspects, he wouldn't be able to become a higher up of the Tianding Gate with a cultivation of intermediate saint. After that, the old man chatted with Night Sorrow for a while and asked about Night Sorrow's past. Night Sorrow's answer was that he came from a remote place and didn't come into contact with too many people. However, he liked alchemy. This is a book on alchemy. Take it and study it. Elder Xiang took out a handwritten book and handed it to Night Sorrow. Thank you for your generous gift, elder. Night Sorrow stood up and bowed to the old man. It's nothing. Work hard. If you really have any questions, you can come to the main peak to find me. Cultivation questions are also fine. Perhaps I can guide you in terms of vision and knowledge, the old man said with a smile. After sending the old man away, Night Sorrow felt a little more at ease. The Tianding Gate could clearly become a saint-grade alchemist. After all, the 5-spirit pill was a top-grade saint-grade pill. However, this was not the limit that Night Sorrow was pursuing. With his current cultivation, he could become a saint-king-grade alchemist. Chu Danxian still treated him as a coolie, but Night Sorrow's refining speed was very fast. If you want me to refine, then I will refine. After finishing my own work, Night Sorrow will then go and refine his own pills. Master, this fellow is so quiet. He's not putting master in his eyes at all. Tang Yuan said as she watched Night Sorrow's departing figure. Look at the original version of the book with Night Sorrow's cultivation. He could naturally hear Tang Yuan's words. This made him feel very helpless. He just didn't curry favor with Tang Yuan like the others, yet Tang Yuan had always been targeting him. Although Night Sorrow wanted to live a peaceful life, Night Sorrow wouldn't curry favor with anyone. Even King couldn't do that. Chu Danxian didn't say anything. Although she didn't like Night Sorrow very much, Night Sorrow was very good at doing things. He has been in the sect for half a year, but his alchemy skills still haven't improved. Master can teach him more strictly. Tang Yuan said. With Tang Yuan adding fuel to the fire, Yishang's days became even more difficult. This was because Chu Danxian had set a goal for Yishang's improvement. She had set a certain level when he would reach and what kind of medicinal pill he would refine. However, Night Sorrow was already a saint-grade alchemist, so this naturally wouldn't be a problem for him. When the time set by Chu Danxian was up, Night Sorrow would naturally meet the requirements. After becoming a saint-grade alchemist, Night Sorrow could refine top-grade 5th-order pills. Night Sorrow kept a portion of these pills because the people of the 9 regions world needed them. Elder Xiang often came to drink tea with Night Sorrow and said some comforting words to Night Sorrow. When Yi Shang reached the alchemy grandmaster realm that Chu Danxian had requested, His life became a little more comfortable. A saint-level alchemist needed a saint-level cultivation, and Yi Shang had shown a venerable-level cultivation. Chu Danxian couldn't ask a venerable-level alchemist like Yi Shang to become a saint-level alchemist. When Night Sorrow wasn't refining pills, he also cultivated formations. He learned from Elder Xiang. When they were chatting, this topic came up by chance. Knowing that Elder Xiang was an expert in this field, Night Sorrow humbly asked for guidance. Besides that, Elder Xiang had also found out about Yi Shang's situation in the West Radiance Peak, so he brought Yi Shang to see Chu Danxian and said some words that were implicit, but Chu Danxian was able to understand what he meant. From that day onwards, Chu Danxian came to her senses and didn't make things difficult for Night Sorrow anymore. However, a new problem arose. That was, Chu Danxian wanted Night Sorrow to become a disciple. Night Sorrow was unwilling. Respecting one's master was an iron law that cultivators had to abide by. Night Sorrow only wanted to cultivate and refine pills. He didn't have to betray the Tianding Gate and fulfill his duty for the Tianding Gate. However, in his heart, he still didn't accept Chu Danxian. Night Sorrow used his low natural talent as an excuse to refuse Chu Danxian. The furious Chu Danxian roared loudly and wanted to expel Night Sorrow from the sect. This made Night Sorrow feel very helpless. However, Elder Xiang came at this moment. Elder Xiang, Night Sorrow came to the Tianding Gate to cultivate and become a disciple of the Tianding Gate, so he'll be bound by the rules of the Tianding Gate. However, his natural talent is inferior and he didn't intend to become a disciple of any sect. A master for a day is a father for life, so Night Sorrow wasn't mentally prepared as well, said Night Sorrow. I understand. Night Sorrow, calm down first. Danxian, you have to understand that taking a disciple is a matter of mutual consent, and it can't be forced in the slightest. If you want to take a disciple, then the first thing you have to do is be a role model for others. Think about it, Night Sorrow has been at the West Radiance Peak since you've done this. You've slightly disappointed me, and you have to reflect on yourself, said Elder Xiang. Chu Danxuan's eyes were filled with flames as she looked at Night Sorrow. She was very angry, but she couldn't say anything when facing Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow, cultivate here. Just remember that you're a disciple of the Tianding Gate. If there's a problem, I believe you'll be able to deal with it properly. Elder Xiang nodded to Night Sorrow before leaving. Night Sorrow, you're really something. Chu Danxian spoke coldly before turning around and leaving. Night Sorrow was left behind by himself, and he sighed helplessly. It's not easy to even be an ordinary disciple. Is this the large world? After he stabilized his state of mind, Night Sorrow continued to refine pills and charge towards proficiency. As for Chu Danxuan's difficulties, Night Sorrow didn't mind because he wasn't wrong and had an indomitable spirit that had a clear conscience. Truthfully speaking, Night Sorrow felt that Chu Danxian wasn't suitable to be his master in any aspect. No matter if it was character, virtue, or strength, she didn't have the qualifications. Speak. Chapter 970. After being rebuffed by Night Sorrow, Chu Danxian never came to look for Night Sorrow again. Night Sorrow studied his alchemy skills leisurely. He also did business, which was exchanging alchemy pills for ingredients and ingredients for alchemy pills. His soul power was strong, and even Chu Danxuan's alchemy speed couldn't compare to him. Amongst the 1,000-plus disciples of the Heavenly Cauldron sect's West Radiance Peak, Yi Shang had become an exception. He was someone that no one loved, and because Chu Danxian looked down on, no one paid any attention to Yi Shang. Occasionally, he would be troubled, but Night Sorrow would just laugh it off. Although he was young, he had already passed the age of showing off. His state of mind wasn't something that ordinary people could understand. Even if he was provoked by a rank 4 cultivator and said a few unpleasant words, he would just laugh it off. In addition, he wouldn't refuse anyone who asked him for help. After a long time, Night Sorrow's reputation in the West Radiance Peak became better. In addition, everyone knew that Night Sorrow's alchemy skills were very high. For alchemy pills below the saint rank, Night Sorrow had never failed to refine them. Some people also knew the reason why Night Sorrow wasn't welcomed. It was because he wasn't willing to take the peak master as his master. This made many people admire him, because many people didn't have such an opportunity even if they racked their brains. In the blink of an eye, Knight Sorrow had arrived at the Tianding Gate for 3 years. His alchemy skills had already reached the Saint King level. Now, he was studying formations. If it wasn't for that, Knight Sorrow might have left the Tianding Gate to explore. The Tianding Gate's rules weren't strict, and it could even be said that they were very loose. As long as you didn't betray the Tianding Gate, you could go out and explore at any time and come back at any time. However, you must lend a hand when something happened to the Tianding Gate. On the other hand, Knight Sorrow and Elder Xiang had become friends despite the difference in age. They often drank tea together. However, Knight Sorrow's main body's comprehension of the will of heaven and earth wasn't enough. He knew that this was normal. If it was so easy to comprehend, then the king's realm would be everywhere. Just as Knight Sorrow was planning to send some alchemy pills to the main body and some resources to the 9 regions world, Chu Danxian found Knight Sorrow. I plan to participate in the Alchemist Conference. You will accompany me as my assistant. Chu Danxian said to Knight Sorrow. My West Radiance Peak has many elders who are better at alchemy than me. I'll pass. Yi Shan didn't want to join in the fun, and he just wanted to cultivate in peace. Tangs, stangs. S is for you, why do you have so for you? I don't care if you are Ku Kai or Tang Yuan. Go to the side. Who do you think you are? Go to someone else. Don't talk nonsense with me. Knight Sorrow looked at Tang Yuan and roared. His aura subconsciously suppressed Tang Yuan and forced her to retreat. I can go and do what an assistant should do. But please remember, don't disturb my cultivation after this. Knight Sorrow finished roaring at Tang Yuan and looked at Chu Danxian. Chu Danxian nodded. She was also helpless. It wasn't suitable to ask some elders to be his assistant. Firstly, they might not be willing to be a supporting role. Furthermore, she had some understanding of Knight Sorrow's alchemy skills. No matter if it was his proficiency or technique, no one else could compare to him at the level of an alchemy grandmaster. The Alchemist Union was an independent force in the profound sky world. Any alchemy grandmaster could join. The Alchemist Union would often hold a conference to promote exchanges. This time, the conference was held at the Big Dipper city that Knight Sorrow often traded at. That was the capital city of the Big Dipper Empire. Knight Sorrow had mentioned this matter to Old Xiang when he was chatting with him. Looking at Knight Sorrow, Old Xiang smiled. Then you can go. It's not good for you to be too calm at such a young age. Young people should be full of vigor and vitality. In fact, you could have signed up yourself. There's no point in fighting for fame and fortune. I can do it myself, I don't need the approval of others. Knight Sorrow shook his head and said, You're right, but it's not comprehensive enough. For example, if you're a monarch-grade alchemist and someone wants to refine a monarch-grade medicinal pill, wouldn't they have to look for you and pay a huge price? Wouldn't that be a great help to you? Elder Xiang said. Knight Sorrow thanks Old Xiang for his guidance. Knight Sorrow nodded to Old Xiang. There was still some time before the alchemist assembly began, so Knight Sorrow continued to study alchemy. His alchemy skills had already reached the same level as his cultivation, and he had already become a high-grade Saint King-grade alchemist. It could be said that in the absence of King-grade alchemists, his alchemy skills were outstanding. After finishing another round of alchemy, Yang Kai poured himself a pot of heart-cleansing tea to taste when Chu Danxian came to call Knight Sorrow to set off. The mysterious Heaven World's transmission arrays were quite developed, so after a few teleportations, Chu Danxian brought Knight Sorrow and Tang Yuan to Big Dipper City and settled down in an inn. After settling down, Knight Sorrow went to the city's largest medicine store. Little friend, the materials you requested have already been prepared, so we don't owe you anything, an old man inside the medicine store said with a smile. I brought some pills this time, old Zhang, you still owe me, Knight Sorrow said with a smile. Ha, that's not necessarily the case. This time we've obtained some top-grade materials. Old Zhang smiled and led Knight Sorrow into the VIP room. You say that every time. I don't believe you, Old Zhang, Knight Sorrow said as he sat down. He was a VIP here and was very familiar with Old Zhang, so he spoke very casually. All right, but I can give you a piece of news. This time there really are some top-grade treasures appearing, King-grade Silver Dragon Bone and Silver Dragon Blood Essence. Silver Dragon Bone is a top-grade artifact refining material. You can't obtain it, but the Dragon Blood Essence is only for top-grade alchemists who need it. No one will touch it. You can try. The auction will be tomorrow, old Zhang said. I don't have much capital. Knight Sorrow really wanted the Dragon Blood Essence. It was a supplementary material for his myriad Dao Tomes cultivation. Let's go take a look. The auction house can't miss out, old Zhang said with a smile. Knight Sorrow nodded. Going to take a look was free, and if he couldn't afford it, he wouldn't lose any money. When they returned to the inn, Knight Sorrow was faced with Chu Danxuan's dissatisfied gaze. Knight Sorrow didn't mind, or rather, he was already used to it. There are only 7 days left until the alchemist assembly. I don't want any accidents, Chu Danxian said coldly. After returning to his room, Knight Sorrow counted his assets. In the past, he had over 30 Holy Spirit stones, but after years of accumulating wealth through alchemy, he had only accumulated 60. In other words, if the Silver Dragon Blood Essence exceeded 60 Holy Spirit stones, he would have to give it up. Knight Sorrow quietly rested in the inn for a day, then followed old Zhang to the auction house. The auction house's security was very strict, and it could be said that no one could enter without a number plate. This was Big Dipper King's territory, so no one dared to mess around. Knight Sorrow and old Zhang sat down and waited for the auction to begin. However, something that disgusted Knight Sorrow appeared, and that was that Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan also appeared in the auction house. #Kavi. One is the real deal, while the others are pirated versions. Knight Sorrow had no choice, as he couldn't leave. He felt that these two women were ghosts with ill intentions. While Knight Sorrow was thinking, Chu Danxian also saw Knight Sorrow. Her eyes were filled with confusion, then anger, because Knight Sorrow's seat was much more honorable than hers. Speak. Chapter 971. Knight Sorrow turned his head to the side and pretended not to see Chu Danxian. He didn't care about that anymore. He could do whatever he wanted. He was a disciple of the Tianding Gate, but he didn't need to care about anyone's feelings. Knight Sorrow wasn't afraid of being expelled. He hadn't done anything to betray the Tianding Gate. If Chu Danxian wanted to find trouble with him, he had no choice but to accept it. The auction items were sold one by one. When it came to the Silver Dragon Bone, it reached its climax. This is the bone of a fallen king-level silver dragon. We don't know how it died, but a king sent it to be auctioned. Its authenticity is guaranteed by our Big Dipper auction house's 10,000 years of reputation. The auctioneer gave a simple introduction. His words were simple, but everyone understood what he meant. The owner of the Big Dipper auction house was Big Dipper King. Would Big Dipper King auction fake goods? Of course not. In the end, the Silver Dragon Bone was sold for 300 Saint Spirit stones. This made Knight Sorrow feel embarrassed. Back in the Nine Regions world, Knight Sorrow felt that he wasn't lacking in anything. Now, however, he felt like a country bumpkin. Knight Sorrow didn't have much hope for the Silver Dragon Blood. There were too many rich people in the profound heaven world. If others wanted it, he couldn't compete. The starting price of the Silver Dragon Blood was 30 Saint Spirit stones. Knight Sorrow raised his hand and bid 40 Saint Spirit stones. Every bid had to be at least 10 Saint Spirit stones. What surprised Knight Sorrow was that no one bid. That was 3 whole chunks of Silver Dragon Blood. The auctioneer called out 3 times. Knight Sorrow felt that time was passing very slowly. Only when the auctioneer's hammer fell on the table did someone call out a bid. However, it was already too late. What's going on? You managed to get it? The elder looked at Knight Sorrow in surprise. He had brought Knight Sorrow here to take a look, but he hadn't expected that Knight Sorrow would actually manage to get it. I didn't know that no one would bid for the Silver Dragon Blood, Knight Sorrow said with a smile. Knight Sorrow then noticed that Chu Danxian had bid for 2 alchemy ingredients. However, they were both at the starting price of 20 Saint Spirit stones. After the auction ended, Knight Sorrow paid the Saint Spirit stones and obtained the 3 chunks of Silver Dragon Blood essence. Young man, you really know your stuff. This old man was still thinking about the silver dragon bone in a daze and actually missed it. At the entrance of the auction house, the old man who had bid late greeted Yi Shan. "I'm sorry, but this is really important to me," Yi Shang said apologetically. "Hee, don't worry. A gentleman doesn't take away someone else's love. This is yours." The old man smiled and left. Yi Shan said goodbye to Elder Zhang and returned to the inn. Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan appeared in Night Sorrow's room as soon as they entered the inn. "You're very rich. Is there a problem?" Night Sorrow replied indifferently. Night Sorrow didn't like Chu Danxuan's tone. "How can you say that?" Tang Yuan saw that Night Sorrow was a little unconvinced and directly said, "Then how can I say that? I can't enter the auction house or can't have Saint Spirit stones. Also, look after yourself. Don't ask for no reason. You don't have the right." Night Sorrow looked at Tang Yuan and replied, "As an elder, I can't even ask?" Chu Danxian replied to Night Sorrow, "There's a limit to everything. No one is a fool, and no one will always have a good temper. Don't scare me with the threat of being expelled from the sect. You know I don't care." Yi Shang didn't want to hold back anymore, because these two women had no bottom line. "You're very good," Chu Danxian said and brought Tang Yuan back to her room. "Master, what's the point of expelling him from the sect?" Tang Yuan said somewhat indignantly. Chu Danxian glanced at Tang Yuan and said with dissatisfaction, "After this alchemy conference, you have to work harder. If you're capable, would Master need to give face to him?" Night Sorrow's soul strength enveloped the entire inn, and he clearly heard Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan's words. He knew that his days in the West Radiance Peak were coming to an end. It wasn't that he wouldn't stay any longer even if Chu Danxian didn't expel him from the sect. The two of them had no bottom line. His master, Chu Danxian, had no bottom line. Tang Yuan, or rather, Jiao Kuai, her parents had died early, and she lacked education. Night Sorrow disdained to be associated with them. Since he'd thought things through, he naturally didn't mind. Night Sorrow studied the silver dragon blood essence for a moment and felt extremely satisfied. Because these 3 pieces of silver dragon blood essence were very large. Any one of them was the size of a millstone and contained extremely dense energy. After staying for a few days, Chu Danxian brought Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan to the plaza of the Alchemist Guild. The alchemy conference was being held here. All the alchemists that had registered would refine medicinal pills together. The winner would receive generous rewards and the Pill King medal from the Alchemist Guild. This alchemy conference was only held once every 300 years, so it was rather grand, and there were many alchemists that came. Night Sorrow noticed that there were at least 200 people participating, and each person could bring 2 assistants. There were 9 long tables in front of each official participant. On the first table, there were 3 alchemy furnaces and alchemy materials, and the tables behind were also filled with materials. Night Sorrow also understood the rules. The 9 long tables represented 9 grades. The first table was filled with medicinal materials for Tier 1 pills, the second table was filled with materials for Tier 2 pills, and so on. If the materials on the 5th table were successfully refined, one would be an alchemy grandmaster, and if the materials on the 6th table were successfully refined, one would be an alchemy grandmaster. If the materials on the 7th table were successfully refined, one would be a Saint grade alchemist, and the 8th table corresponded to a Saint King grade alchemist. The 9th table was an empty table, which represented a King grade alchemist. King grade alchemists wouldn't participate in such a conference. Even if they did, it would be the Pill Monarch Conference, which was held once every 1,000 years. This conference would produce 3 Pill Kings, Amethyst Pill King, Golden Pill King, and Silver Pill King, which corresponded to the top 3. In addition, after breaking through to the level of Alchemy Grandmaster, there would be elders of the Alchemist Union who would ask questions about alchemy. Only those who passed could continue to refine pills. This was to prevent alchemists who were not skilled enough from wasting materials. Night Sorrow saw Ji Teng and cupped his hands to greet him. Ji Teng also responded with a smile. After worshipping the pill god, everyone stood in their positions. After a person wearing a robe with pill patterns lit the incense, The participants began to refine pills. If they didn't refine pills within the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, they would fail. Night Sorrow saw the seriousness of the alchemy conference. Refining Tier 1 pills had eliminated more than a dozen people, not for anything else, but because of carelessness and flaws in the pills. Pills are for people to eat. Alchemists should have a sincere attitude. If your father and mother ate pills, would they also refine pills like this? Ji Teng reprimanded the losers and directly drove them out of the arena. Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan had nothing to do with refining low-level pills. They were just going through the motions. When refining Saint-grade pills, Chu Danxian needed the cooperation of the two. Night Sorrow knew Chu Danxuan's level. She could refine Saint-grade mid-rank pills, but she didn't have the opportunity to refine high-level pills. Speak. Chapter 972. This was because Chu Danxian had never succeeded in refining the 5-spirit pill. She was a level 6 saint, so her spiritual strength was not enough. Even if she had an assistant, it was still not enough. After some people were eliminated in the first tier, everyone became more cautious. They did not dare to be careless, which led to very few people being eliminated. Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan followed Chu Danxian. As long as it was not a level 6 pill, Chu Danxian did not need an assistant. Night Sorrow did not care about Tang Yuan and other people trying to curry favor with her. The level 6 pill was the Origin Spirit pill, while the level 6 pill was the Yuan Qing pill. Now, alchemy grandmasters needed to refine the Yuan Qing pill. In the Alchemist Assembly, there was no need to refine low-level pills of every grade, only high-level pills. This way, the alchemist who passed the assessment would be at the pinnacle of this level. The Alchemist Union opened their mouths and asked some questions about the refining techniques of the Yuan Qing pill. As the questions were asked, some people were eliminated. This was because they could not refine the Yuan Qing pill in theory. Chu Danxian naturally had no problems. She came from the Tianding Gate, so she could refine both in theory and practice. In practice, many people were eliminated. Some of the alchemists were alchemy grandmasters, but they had not reached the peak. Although they could refine the pill in theory, they could not refine it in practice. Next was the refining of the Saint Grade 5 Spirit pill. Following that, the elders of the Alchemist Union would ask questions. Following that, the Alchemist Union's elders would ask questions. Following that, one after another, the Alchemist Union's alchemists fell off their horses. In order to refine the 5-spirit pill, one needed to be a high-level Saint-grade alchemist. The one who asked Chu Danxian was Ji Teng. Ji Teng smiled and nodded at Night Sorrow. Ji Teng began to ask questions, but when it came to the fusion of the supplementary materials and the main materials, Ji Teng shook his head in dissatisfaction and announced that Chu Danxian was disqualified. "Hello, Elder, I wonder if I can add on." Night Sorrow saw Chu Danxuan's disappointment and cupped his hands towards Ji Teng. "If you can answer correctly, I can give you a chance." Ji Teng nodded. "I'll give her a chance." Night Sorrow pointed at Chu Danxian. "No, she's wrong in theory. It's impossible for her to complete the refinement. Come, I want to hear your answer." Ji Teng glanced at Chu Danxian and shook his head. After sighing, Night Sorrow explained the situation of the 5-spirit pill and where Chu Danxian made a mistake. Very good answer. You may proceed to the next round and try to concoct the 5-spirit pill. Of course, with your cultivation, failure is certain. I will personally pay for the ingredients. Young people need opportunities. Ji Teng said to Night Sorrow. He had a good impression of Night Sorrow. Just based on Night Sorrow's apology after winning the Silver Dragon Blood Essence, he liked it very much. Night Sorrow didn't have the arrogance of a young man. That Night Sorrow will not disappoint the elders. After listening to Ji Teng's words, Night Sorrow's heart was touched. Ji Teng had perfectly explained what it meant to be a person of virtue and prestige, what it meant to be magnanimous. "Sorry, I won't be your assistant." Chu Danxian coldly snorted and retreated to the competition seat behind the first table. Tang Yuan also left. An old man on the main seat closed his eyes in disappointment. The other elders of the Alchemist Union also shook their heads. Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan's actions had lost their bearing. Night Sorrow didn't mind because he didn't need an assistant to concoct the Saint King high-level spirit perception pill. The Saint Level 5 spirit pill wasn't difficult for him. The old man wearing a long robe lit a very thick incense stick, and the 7th round of the examination began. Night Sorrow stood in front of the long table and tidied up his robe. He then closed his eyes and nodded to the furnace. He then began to concoct the 5 spirit pill. Night Sorrow's 2 alchemy furnaces started at the same time. One refining the main ingredient, the other refining the auxiliary ingredient. Everything was coordinated and natural. This young man is not bad. Although his cultivation is low and he will definitely fail, his bearing and technique are excellent. The most important thing is that his attitude is correct. He will definitely grow up in the future. An old man sitting beside Jiteng said, "Elder Tan, it's still too early to say that. Cultivation limits an alchemist's grade, but don't forget about talent. Some alchemists with good talent and powerful soul force can skip ranks to concoct pills." The old man who was disappointed in Chu Danxian said, "Elder Xiang is right." Elder Tan bowed to the old man. Night Sorrow heard their conversation. This made him less worried because even if he succeeded, it could be explained by talent. At this time, the 30 or so alchemists who were still persevering all had assistants. So what if they had assistants? Their refining speed was not as fast as Night Sorrow's. Although Night Sorrow's alchemy fire was average, it was very stable and didn't affect his refining speed. Night Sorrow continued to refine the main ingredients while the auxiliary ingredients were refined one by one and fused with the main ingredients. Everything was done naturally and harmoniously by Night Sorrow. For hours later, Night Sorrow waved his sleeve and opened his alchemy furnace. Energy wrapped around the pills and they fell into a jade bottle. He also left 1 pill on a jade plate for the Alchemist Guild's upper echelon to inspect. After using his alchemy fire to clean the alchemy furnace, Night Sorrow once again closed his eyes and nodded towards the alchemy furnace. He then took a few steps back. "Elder Tan, can any of you do better than him?" Elder Xiang looked at Elder Tan and asked. "Yes, people like him are born to refine pills." Elder Tan nodded. Following that was the evaluation of the pills. The Alchemist Guild was very satisfied with Night Sorrow's pills. Because Night Sorrow was refining them alone, the main ingredients and auxiliary ingredients were refined at the same temperature. That was why the 5 spirit pill was incomparably smooth. "Very good. Haha, I really didn't misjudge you." Jiteng looked at Night Sorrow with satisfaction. "Let's not talk about other things. Night Sorrow can't disappoint the expectations of the elders. I can't let down the teachings and support of the elders." Night Sorrow said, "Young people like you are becoming fewer and fewer. Don't talk about quitting. If you pass the examination, I am still willing to give you a set of alchemy materials to let you continue." Jiteng seemed to have seen through Night Sorrow's thoughts and directly spoke his mind. At this time, another person came over to re-register Night Sorrow. "Tianding Gate, Night Sorrow." Night Sorrow reported his name. Who is your master?" Jiteng asked. "Speaking of which, my previous honored master didn't really refine pills. When I was at the Tianding Gate, I didn't have a honored master." Night Sorrow hesitated and said, "He wouldn't lie." After listening to Night Sorrow's words, Jiteng and the Alchemist Guild elder were both stunned. Night Sorrow, with his aptitude, actually didn't have a honored master. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Next is the Saint King Grade Pill Assessment. This king can't actually refine it, but I know the theory, so don't answer incorrectly. Jiteng returned to the main topic. Jiteng asked about the theory of refining the spirit comprehension pill. Night Sorrow had refined a few spirit comprehension pills, so he naturally answered without any problems. At this time, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan's faces were blue and white. "Speak." Chapter 973. What was a slap in the face? Night Sorrow was a slap in the face, and it was a slap in the face. Normally, I would do whatever you say. You would be so arrogant just because you refine some high-grade pills. Now that I can refine pills, you can't. Night Sorrow gave Chu Danxian an iron countertake. One had to know that many people came to the Tianding Gate to participate in the Alchemist Conference. They didn't know Night Sorrow, but they knew Chu Danxian. At this moment, the people who came to the Tianding Gate to participate in the Alchemist Conference were very disappointed with Chu Danxuan's character. She actually arranged for such a West Radiance Peak disciple to be an assistant, and Night Sorrow was neither arrogant nor humble. The two formed a huge contrast. Your answer is very good. If your cultivation is enough and your soul is strong enough, you can already refine the spirit comprehension pill. It doesn't matter if you fail this time, you still have a long way to go. This King, Jiteng, invites you to join the Alchemist Guild and also invites you to be a guest at home. After hearing Night Sorrow's answer, Jiteng opened his mouth and made an invitation. First, it was the Alchemist Guild's invitation, and then it was Jiteng's personal invitation. Night Sorrow will definitely obey the orders of an elder. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Jiteng. Jiteng laughed loudly and returned to the main seat. He was very happy because Night Sorrow wasn't pretentious. Vice President did well this time. Looks like he recognizes you very much. The image of the Alchemist Guild is very important and needs all of us to maintain it. An elder should have the demeanor of an elder. Grand Elder Xiang nodded towards Jiteng. This bastard actually embarrassed us. Tang Yuan said hatefully. Chu Danxian shook her head helplessly. She knew that she had lost a lot of face. Not only at the Tianding Gate, but also in the Alchemist Guild. She was also a member of the Alchemist Guild. At this moment, there were only about 10 people who passed the theory of refining the Saint King grade spirit comprehension pill. Night Sorrow stood in front of the first long table. There is no time limit this time, but you can only refine one furnace. If you fail, so be it. Don't force yourself. After all, you all aren't peak Saint Kings. It's very difficult to refine this spirit comprehension pill. He was the vice president of the Alchemist Union, Pan Yun. He was also the president of the Big Dipper City branch. Following Pan Yun's words, the final test began. Night Sorrow hesitated over whether or not he should try, whether or not he should refine. If he succeeded, then there would be trouble. But if he deliberately failed when he could succeed, then that would be immoral. It would be disrespectful to himself, to Jiteng, and to alchemy. Seeing Night Sorrow standing there without moving, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan both breathed a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that Night Sorrow would continue to slap them in the face. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow made a decision. He would respect Jiteng, respect alchemy, and most importantly, respect himself. Nodding at the furnace, Night Sorrow checked the ingredients for the spirit comprehension pill. Vice President Ji really has good eyesight. This little guy still hasn't given up. There's no need to say anything about his persistence. It's one thing for you to provide the ingredients, but the union still has to support young people, Pan Yun said with a smile. I feel like his mentality has suddenly changed. It's as if he has let go of something, Jiteng said as he looked at Night Sorrow's back. Yes, his essence, energy, and spirit have changed. Xiang Taisheng also nodded. In order to succeed, Night Sorrow had to let go of some of his cultivation. It was impossible to refine a Saint King level pill with a supreme level pill flame. Night Sorrow released his cultivation to the level of a mid-level saint. He adjusted his pill flame and began refining. This little guy is suppressing his cultivation to refine a top-quality saint-level pill with a supreme-level pill flame. Now that he's a mid-level saint, there's hope for him to refine a Saint King-level pill. Jiteng was surprised for a moment before smiling because he saw hope. He only cared about whether or not the pill could succeed. He didn't care why Night Sorrow was suppressing his cultivation. Xiang Taisheng, who was sitting at the side, also smiled and nodded. He understood that this was the result of Night Sorrow's change in mentality. Seeing the change in Night Sorrow's cultivation, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan were stunned. They didn't understand what was going on. Whether it was alchemy skills or cultivation, if Night Sorrow had shown the same, they wouldn't have bullied Night Sorrow like that. Peak Master Chu, what's going on? A middle-aged man looked at Chu Danxian and asked. Replying to Elder Tian, Danxian doesn't know. Chu Danxian bowed to the man. Sigh, your peak master position is unprecedented. Elder Tian sighed. He was Elder Tian Fu of the Heavenly Cauldron sect. He had given up after refining the 5-spirit pill. He was a Saint King, but he was not a peak Saint King, so he could not refine the spirit comprehension pill. Seeing today's situation, Tian Fu felt that there was a need for the Tianding Gate to convene an elder council to discuss the West Radiance Peaks problem. Even if Chu Danxian was related to the Tianding King, it still had to be dealt with. Night Sorrow's left hand controlled a pill furnace to refine the main ingredient, while his right hand controlled a pill furnace to refine the supplementary ingredients. He was doing two things at once. Although Night Sorrow didn't have an assistant, his refining speed wasn't inferior to the other groups. After all, the competitors were refining the main ingredient while the assistants were refining the supplementary ingredients at the same time. Time slowly passed, and the 10 groups were all refining. Their main competitors were all high-rank Saint Kings, so if they were lucky, they still had some chance. Xiang Taisheng, this is a good seedling for your Tianding Gate. However, the Spirit Comprehension Pill has too great of a requirement for his pill flame and soul energy. I don't know if he can persevere, said Pan Yun. I don't know, but I reckon he can. He's hiding his cultivation and is willing to be a backup. It's just that he wants to keep a low profile and bide his time. It's just that he wants to live an ordinary life. Who knows what his actual ability is? Xiang Taisheng's expression was very calm. Ji Teng and the others didn't say anything. Ji Teng also thought of another problem. When Night Sorrow interacted with him, he kept calling him elder, but not senior. There was a difference between the two. Elders were older and needed to be respected. Addressing senior required the respect of a junior. As for Night Sorrow's age, everyone knew that he was very young. This was because they could tell from his skin and eyes. It was just like a tree in front of you. With a glance, you could tell whether it was a big tree or a small tree. Time slowly slipped away. Night Sorrow's condition had always been very good. The medicinal pills were still being refined in an orderly manner. There were over 70 supplementary ingredients, and each of them was a master-grade medicinal pills supplementary ingredient. They were continuously refined in the pill furnace in Night Sorrow's right hand before entering the main furnace in his left hand. After that, there were people who continuously gave up. After all, there were many factors that affected success, such as pill flame, soul energy, the quality of the supplementary ingredients, and so on. Only 3 groups of people continued to refine pills, and their cooperation was also very good. As the sky darkened, the lights in the square lit up like it was daytime. It was normal for Saint King grade pills to take a day or even longer to refine. In the second half of the night, Night Sorrow finished refining all the supplementary ingredients and fused them with the main ingredients, nourishing and compressing them. If the pill flame and soul energy can withstand it, this furnace of pills can be refined. Tian Fu could see that Night Sorrow's alchemy skills were very profound. The only thing he lacked was his cultivation. Looking at the original chapter. The darkness passed, and a purple aura rose from the east. Night Sorrow's pill refining was also nearing completion. At that moment, Night Sorrow made a move that surprised everyone. Opening the pill furnace in his left hand, he used his right thumb to cut his index finger, and a drop of golden blood entered the pill furnace. Soon after, the pill flame under Night Sorrow's pill furnace burned fiercely. Next, a few milky white pills with a flowing red halo came out of the furnace. Speak! Chapter 974. Night Sorrow waved his sleeve and placed the pills into the jade bottle on the table, leaving one on the jade plate. What are you doing? You ruined a good batch of pills. Pan Yun roared at Night Sorrow when he saw that everyone else had finished refining their pills. Why are you in such a hurry? Let's hear what he has to say first. Elder Xiang said, if I didn't make any changes, then what I refined would be a normal spirit comprehension pill. However, it is recorded in the ancient records that the more spiritual energy there is, the better the effect of the spirit comprehension pill. Since humans are the spirit of all living things, I added a drop of blood essence. Now, this pill is a blood vein spirit comprehension pill. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards the Alchemist Union's upper echelon. Sorry, I was too excited. Now that I think about it, there is indeed such a record. Pan Yun very magnanimously cupped his hands towards Night Sorrow to express his apology. Holding Night Sorrow's pill, all the Alchemist Union's upper echelon took a look. They were all very shocked by the quality of the pill. The blood veins seemed to be alive. Including Night Sorrow, there were 4 groups that had successfully refined the spirit comprehension pill. Now that the 4 batches of pills had been refined, Night Sorrow's pill was placed aside. Of the other 3 batches, 1 was a defective product, so it was naturally eliminated. The 2 batches of pills that were selected were placed together with Night Sorrow's pill, and then the rankings were determined. Night Sorrow undoubtedly won first place and received the Amethyst Pill King's medal. The other 2 were the Golden Pill King and Silver Pill King. The Alchemist Union did not let the participants leave because there was still a banquet. This was the Alchemist Union's biggest event in the past 300 years, so they had to celebrate it. The members of the Tianding Gate all came to greet Night Sorrow, and Night Sorrow politely returned their greetings. The only one that did not give Night Sorrow a good face was Chu Danxian. This was because she was very angry and her face had completely fallen to the ground. Night Sorrow did not care about Chu Danquan's expression because it was not worth it. Chu Danxian was not worth his attention. Night Sorrow greeted everyone from the Alchemist Union, especially the Alchemist Union's Grand Elder Xiang. You know Elder Xiang, don't you? He mentioned you when we met, Elder Xiang said with a smile. My alchemy skills were taught by Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow will always remember it. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Grand Elder Xiang. After the banquet, Chu Danxian took Tang Yuan to Night Sorrow's place. Are you leaving? I have something to tell you. Night Sorrow nodded and followed her. Since Chu Danxian wanted to talk, then let's talk. After leaving the Alchemist Union, the 3 of them arrived at a tea house in Big Dipper City. Night Sorrow, what do you mean? After sitting down, Night Sorrow had just asked for a pot of tea when Chu Danxian roared, Night Sorrow, what do you mean? I don't understand what I mean. I just want to quietly cultivate my alchemy skills. Can't you understand what I'm thinking? You're a peak master, can't you take a look at yourself? Night Sorrow was not agitated, he was just expressing his thoughts. Good, you hit it well. A high-level Holy King alchemist, I was blind. Chu Danxian said angrily. At this moment, 2 men entered the tea house, then their eyes fell on Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan. Not bad, this body is very fleshy. The 2 men walked directly to Night Sorrow's table. Night Sorrow noticed that the 2 were Holy Kings, beginner Holy Kings, so they did not put Night Sorrow's group in their eyes. After all, Night Sorrow and Chu Danxian were mid-level Holy Kings. Tang Yuan was negligible. Get lost. Chu Danquan's expression changed because she knew these 2 people. They were wanted by the Tianding Gate. They had killed people from the Tianding Gate. Ha, I prefer women from the Tianding Gate. Come with us. Ha, maybe we'll let you live, said a tall and thin man. A place like Big Dipper City was very large. Some battles were not forbidden. Of course, if you attacked someone from Big Dipper City, then you were dead. In your dreams. Chu Danxian took out her sword and rushed towards the tall and thin man. But how could a holy king fight a holy king? Chu Danxian was directly suppressed and captured. The tall and thin man very wretchedly pinched the peak of Chu Danquan's chest. Not bad. A holy king fighting a holy king. You can do it too, said the tall and thin man as he pinched Chu Danquan's chest with 2 fingers. The other person had also captured Tang Yuan. His large hands carelessly groped her a few times, and then he was about to leave, directly ignoring Yishang. In their eyes, they couldn't be bothered to kill a mid-level saint. I really can't calm down even if I want to. Night Sorrow's body flashed, and he stood at the entrance of the tea house. Brat, do you want to die? The tall and thin man looked at Night Sorrow fiercely. I don't want to kill anyone, but the 2 of you must die. Night Sorrow's aura directly erupted, and the law of nothingness suppressed the man who had captured Tang Yuan. The soul annihilation / towards the tall and thin man's spirit sea, followed by the Skysplitter Spear's Skysplitter Spear. Night Sorrow's soul annihilation / was extremely fast, and it directly slashed at the tall and thin man's spirit sea. While he was stunned, the Skysplitter Spear stabbed into his spirit sea. After killing the tall and thin man, Night Sorrow turned around and used the law of nothingness / to annihilate the other man's head. Not even a Saint Crystal was left behind. After putting away the Skysplitter Spear and taking the two men's storage rings, Night Sorrow threw 2 high-grade spirit stones to the tea house and then left, ignoring the frightened Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan. After a few teleportations, Night Sorrow returned to the Tianding Gate. After returning to his residence, Night Sorrow started to pack his things because he couldn't stay on the West Radiance Peak any longer. Chu Danxian didn't have any intention of waking up, so there was no point in it being awkward when they met in the future. While Night Sorrow was packing his things, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan arrived at the courtyard where Night Sorrow lived. "Are you leaving?" Chu Danxian asked. "Yes, to avoid awkwardness. Perhaps this place isn't suitable for me." Night Sorrow said. "We won't make things difficult for you in the future." Chu Danxian said. In the past, Chu Danxian felt that Night Sorrow wasn't like a man. He didn't say anything and resigned himself to adversity, so she didn't like him. After what happened just now, she understood that it wasn't that Night Sorrow wasn't like a man. It was that he didn't want to fight. In Night Sorrow's words, he wanted to cultivate quietly. Chu Danxian couldn't see through Night Sorrow's strength now. 2 low-level Saint Kings were killed by Night Sorrow with 2 shots. This was probably something that even mid-level Saint Kings couldn't do. Although she couldn't guess Night Sorrow's true strength, Chu Danxian knew that he was a real Big Buddha. The Big Buddha entered the small temple, but the small temple was still unwilling. It would be very embarrassing if this matter was spread out. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, I saved you not to ask you to do anything. I just feel that we're all people from the Tianding Gate. Let bygones be bygones. I also plan to leave. Night Sorrow said. The past is our problem. It has nothing to do with you saving us. Chu Danxian said. Just as Night Sorrow was about to speak, a few people came to Night Sorrow's courtyard. It was Elder Xiang and Tian Fu. Speak. Chapter 975. Night Sorrow greets Elder Xiang and Elder Tian. Night Sorrow nodded at the two of them. I know everything about you. I've known about it for a long time. If you don't tell me, I won't ask either. It's good to be friends, said Elder Xiang. Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow was shocked because he couldn't see through Elder Xiang. Let me finish. You have concealed a lot of things. I didn't ask you about it, nor did I pursue the matter. That's because your objective in coming to the Heavenly Cauldron sect is very simple. You want to cultivate the art of alchemy. So, no matter how much you have concealed, even if you have committed grave sins in the past, I won't ask about it. At that moment, Elder Xiang's body transformed, turning into an old man with white eyebrows and a white beard. Disciple greets King. Chu Danxian and Tian Fu both knelt on the ground. Danxian, you're the descendant of my wife. I wanted you to have some achievements, so this clone created an identity to take care of you and give you pointers. But why don't you understand? Elder Xiang said to Chu Danxian. Danxian knows she was wrong. Chu Danxian knew that the problem was serious. Elder Xiang was the Tianding King's clone. In the past few years, I've often come to drink tea and chat with Night Sorrow. I know what kind of person he is. If he really wants to argue with you, he can kill you with one finger. Elder Xiang sighed. Elder Xiang, Night Sorrow didn't hide it on purpose. Other than hiding my cultivation level, everything else is true. I came from a small world and came to the Tianding Gate to cultivate alchemy. I don't have any bad intentions. Night Sorrow felt a little guilty. He and Elder Xiang could be said to be friends despite their age difference. But now, this relationship was going to be blown away. I can understand. It's awkward for a peak holy king to go anywhere, and people will suspect you. But I don't doubt that your clone can still stay here while you cultivate. You can improve your alchemy skills, but I can still give you some pointers on forging and formations, said the Tianding King to Night Sorrow. Thank you, King. Night Sorrow does have a lot of things to do, but no matter what, I won't betray the Tianding Gate. Night Sorrow cupped his hands at the Tianding King. I'm still Elder Xiang in your eyes. Do you understand? Said the Tianding King with a smile. Of course I understand. Hearing the Tianding King's words, Night Sorrow was stunned. That's my friend. In the future, Night Sorrow will still live here, but you have to treat him courteously. You know what that means, right? Night Sorrow, if you have something to do, go and do it. Remember that the Tianding Gate is your sect. This small courtyard will always be your small courtyard. I will also come here often, said the Tianding King to Chu Danxian and Tian Bin as he nodded at Night Sorrow with a smile. We understand. Chu Danxian and Tian Bin nodded. Don't talk nonsense about my identity. Night Sorrow also needs some peace. Don't disturb him if you have nothing to do. Go. The Tianding King waved at Chu Danxian and Tian Bin. After sending Tian Bin and Chu Danxian away, the Tianding King shouted at Night Sorrow, Kid, make some tea. Coming right away. Night Sorrow smiled and got up to make tea. As they chatted, Night Sorrow learned some things. When he came to the Tianding Gate, the Tianding King had already noticed him. However, seeing that Night Sorrow's aura was calm, he knew that he had no ill intentions and did not stop him. He just paid more attention to him. After I left my hometown, I was worried that I would meet a King Realm cultivator and that there would be trouble. However, things were a little different from what I thought. Elder Xiang is not that scary, Night Sorrow said with some emotion. Actually, you were not wrong. In fact, if you did not join the Tianding Gate and did not have the Tianding Gate sect oath, I would not have accepted you here. Later on, you joined the Tianding Gate. To me and the Tianding Gate, it was a great thing. A peak holy king would fight for the Tianding Gate wherever he went. You have found a treasure. Elder Xiang's face was full of joy. In fact, a force really needed a peak holy king. Night Sorrow nodded. He could understand the logic behind it. Also, I will not hide it from you. The Alchemist Alliance's Elder Xiang is also me. I just wanted to see how long you could endure. Only when I saw you kill those two scum would I feel at ease, Elder Xiang said. After that, Elder Xiang told Night Sorrow to do whatever he wanted. However, if he had any enmity, then he had to endure it. He would talk about it when he had the strength. What he meant was that Night Sorrow was still young and did not need to be anxious about anything. Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan were not calm. They never thought that Night Sorrow, who lived in that small courtyard, would be a peak holy king and a clone. There was only one peak holy king at the Tianding Gate, and he did not care about worldly affairs all year round. They could not even see him even if they wanted to. However, there was one lying in front of them now, and he was being bullied by them. I was still thinking of taking him in as a disciple. What a joke. Chu Danxian laughed self-mockingly. He is also too much. He insisted on Master being pinched twice before making a move, Tang Yuan muttered. Shut up. Put away your wretched bones and reflect on yourself. In the future, you will talk about this and that. Chu Danxian glared at Tang Yuan. After chatting with Elder Xiang for a while, Night Sorrow gained some more knowledge. Then he planned to leave. During this period of time, he had accumulated a lot of pills. He wanted to send them back to the 9 regions world. This way, the 9 regions world could develop faster. After sending Elder Xiang away, Night Sorrow teleported to the Two-Pole City. Then he went through the limitless city to the city in the sky. After checking, he found that no one was in seclusion. Night Sorrow shook the space-time pagoda and teleported everyone out. Seeing that Night Sorrow had returned, everyone was very happy. They had not seen each other for more than 3 years. This did not include the acceleration of the space-time pagoda. A big banquet was definitely going to be held. When the news spread, many people rushed over. Everyone asked about Night Sorrow's situation outside. After knowing that Night Sorrow had established a foothold in the heaven profound world, everyone felt at ease. Then, Night Sorrow gave some basic pills to Aoi. 6th senior sister, these Tier 5 and Tier 6 support pills are enough for our family. Divide them into 3 portions. Medicine Valley, Night Moon Dynasty, and the Commander's Residence. Okay, I will arrange it. Aoi nodded. This is the 5-spirit pill that can increase the chances of returning to one's origin. If anyone reaches the peak of the Saint Realm, you can give one to them. Night Sorrow took out another bottle of pills. It was the 5-spirit pill that was very precious in the Heaven Profound world. There are such pills? Wu Lingfei asked in surprise. This is a spirit comprehension pill that can increase one's comprehension ability. As the name suggests, it is a pill that can increase one's comprehension ability. It can increase one's chances of comprehending the will of the heavens and earth. Whoever has reached the peak of the Saint King realm can also come to 6th senior sister and take one. However, it will only increase one's comprehension ability by a little and increase one's chances. It mainly depends on the person. However, they can only comprehend the will of heaven and earth, Night Sorrow said with a smile. He knew that it was still very early because in the 9-domain world camp, the only Saint Kings were him and Zhu Jiyun. Zhu Jiyun's path to the peak of the Saint King realm was still very long. Then what level are you at? Aoi asked Night Sorrow. I joined a sect that specializes in pill refining. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Yang Lei pulled Night Sorrow's arm and shook it. What else can't you say? What level are you at? Speak. Chapter 976. Some time ago, my alchemy technique was upgraded to the Saint King grade and I can now refine Saint King grade pills. Where did these pills come from? I obtained them from alchemy in exchange for materials and then used them for alchemy to make a profit, Yi Shan said with a smile. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, everyone was shocked. At the same time, they knew how hard Night Sorrow had worked. After drinking with Night Sorrow, many people left because Night Sorrow still had to reunite with his family. Night Sorrow accompanied his parents, wife and brothers of the god-slaying squad in the city in the sky. It was very peaceful. There was a bit of commotion at the Tianding Gate because many people knew that Night Sorrow had obtained the Amethyst Pill King medal. At the same time, with Elder Xiang's approval, Tianbin announced that the West Radiance Peak had a peak Saint King overseeing it and it was a Saint King level alchemist. This caused the West Radiance Peak's popularity to increase by quite a bit and also made Chu Danxian blush with shame. In the city in the sky, Night Sorrow accompanied his wife on a boat on the lake. He also took a stroll around the 9 regions world. After staying in the 9 regions world for half a year, Night Sorrow teleported to the Everlasting City. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow did not disturb Yen Tianpe and teleported to the Two Poles City. After exiting the Two Poles City's teleportation array, Night Sorrow felt a little strange. It felt like he was being targeted by a poisonous snake. Night Sorrow stood in front of the teleportation array and pondered for a while before walking towards the teleportation array in the city. Two Poles City's situation was a little special. There were 2 teleportation arrays. One of the more heavily guarded teleportation array led to the Everlasting World and was heavily guarded. The other teleportation array that led to various places in the Heaven Profound world was relatively less guarded. When Night Sorrow was still some distance away from the teleportation array that led to various places in the Heaven Profound world, there was a sudden change. A man waved a long sword and charged towards Night Sorrow. King's Realm on Section Q of the most recent chapter. Night Sorrow saw through the other party's cultivation, it was a 2-star King Realm. This person was the Sky South Empire's Gong Yonglai. He was here to wait for Yen Tianpe, but he did not find Yen Tianpe. Instead, he saw Night Sorrow. He had seen Night Sorrow the last time he returned, but he didn't have the time to make a move. Now that he had the opportunity, he wanted to kill Night Sorrow, even if it was just a clone. Night Sorrow activated his space attribute barrier and used 2 slashes in a row, dodging his opponent's domineering strike. After entering the King Realm, what Gong Yonglai comprehended was sword intent. Therefore, his sword chi contained the will of heaven and earth, and his attacks were fierce and ferocious. Night Sorrow's speed was very fast, but Gong Yanglie's speed was also very fast. His body was like a long sword, which had an extremely strong cutting power toward space. Night Sorrow knew that he was not this Gong Yanglie's opponent. The gap between the Saint King realm and the King realm was simply too great. If Night Sorrow wanted to retreat, the best place to do so was the ultimate world. As long as he entered the ultimate world, Gong Yanglai would not dare to chase after him. Night Sorrow's speed was fast, but Gong Yanglai, who possessed the will of the sword, was even faster. His body moved twice to block Night Sorrow's path of retreat while at the same time, a sword chi cut through space and fell on Night Sorrow's chest. Night Sorrow waved his space splitter spear to resist. With a loud explosion of energy, Night Sorrow's body was sent flying. His chest was cut open by the sputtering sword chi, but the wound was instantly repaired by the energy in his body. Being injured made Night Sorrow angry. He no longer tried to escape and instead rushed forward, using his space splitter spear to display his space splitter spear to meet Gong Yanglie's sword. With a crisp sound, Night Sorrow was pushed back, but Gong Yanglai was also pushed back by Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow's power of Desolate's and Desolate's law had accelerated the depletion of Gong Yanglie's sword chi, so he had to bear 70% of the energy. After being blasted back by Yi Chang, Gong Yanglai was stunned for a moment. While he was still in a daze, Yi Chang rushed up again and used Void Extreme Kill once more. Since he couldn't run away, he might as well fight. At this time, Night Sorrow's supreme attribute and high attribute's power were displayed. He was always able to destroy a portion of Gong Yanglie's attack before facing it head-on. In addition, Night Sorrow's body was tyrannical. Even if his dantian and internal organs were shaken, he could still quickly attack. Gong Yanglai was puzzled. He had never seen such a ferocious Saint King cultivator like Night Sorrow. The continuous clashes caused Night Sorrow's chi to become unstable and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The meridians in his arms were also damaged. However, Gong Yanglai was also not in a good condition. His hands were trembling and his face was pale. The main reason was that Night Sorrow's offensive power was too strong. His strength was suppressed by Night Sorrow's law and he could only use 70% of his power. He was unable to block Night Sorrow's path. Gong Yanglai was blasted away, opening up a path for Night Sorrow to leave. Night Sorrow flashed and fled. At this time, a yellow light with gravity suppression fell on Night Sorrow's body. An armored man appeared out of thin air and attacked Night Sorrow with his blade. 2 King Realm cultivators have come to my 2 Polarity City to kill this king, right? A wave of water appeared and wrapped Night Sorrow to dodge the armored man's blade. Yen Tianpe appeared and directly used his energy to pull Night Sorrow to his side. This is a wanted criminal of our Tiannan dynasty. Flame World Lord, please do not interfere, the armored man said. He was the general of Tiannan dynasty, Yuan Qianba. You need 2 King Realm cultivators to kill a Saint King Realm cultivator? Who are you trying to fool? You think the 2 of you can pose a threat to this king? You think too highly of yourselves. Yen Tianpe narrowed his eyes and sized up the 2. Flame World Lord, your actions will affect the friendship between our 2 sides, Yuan Qianba said. Do we have any relationship? Go back and tell your Emperor Shang Tianfeng that if more sovereign kings from the Tiannan dynasty come to my 2 Polarity City, then I'll also pay a visit to your Tiannan dynasty. My 2 Polarity City has always been safe here, and no power has dared to touch it. If your Tiannan dynasty is so arrogant, then come and try it, said Yen Tianpe coldly. We will definitely kill him, Gong Yanglai said. Trash 2-star King Realm cultivator can't even defeat the soul avatar of a Saint King Realm cultivator. If you are not trash, then what are you? What are you trying to say in front of this king? Scram. Yen Tianpe roared. At the same time, a sparkling longsword appeared in his hand. Let's go. Yuan Qianba pulled the ashen-faced Gong Yanglai and left 2 Polarity City. Night Sorrow, are you all right? Yen Tianpe looked at Night Sorrow and asked. I'm fine. I just received some shock and my meridians are damaged. Night Sorrow said. In fact, his injuries were very serious. Gong Yanglai's sword chi was supported by his sword intent, so its destructive power was extremely strong. Two Polarity City has my soul crystal, so I would be able to sense it when there was a violent energy fluctuation. Although I arrived a little late, I was still able to make it in time. The guy who appeared later didn't make a move at first, but if he did, you wouldn't have been able to keep your soul avatar, Yen Tianpa said. What's the cultivation of the one who appeared later? Night Sorrow asked. 4-star King Realm Cultivator. In fact, they came here to wait for Uncle. I reckon that they also want to investigate Uncle's strength. They don't have good intentions. However, if they want to declare war on me, Uncle can give up on Two Polarity City, but they will have to pay 10 times or 100 times the price. Yen Tianpa coldly snorted. Speak. Chapter 977. It's still the matter of exchanging hostages that caused them to hate Uncle. I'm the one who brought trouble to Uncle, said Night Sorrow apologetically. You're thinking too much. They were the ones who asked Uncle to arrange the exchange of hostages, and then felt that it was unfair. This is because they have a problem with their conduct. To put it bluntly, they're scum. They even sent 2 King Realm experts to guard us. Uncle didn't want to shed all pretense of cordiality. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to return safely, said Yen Tianpa. Yen Tianpa might not be able to kill both Yuan Qianba and Gongyang Lai, but he could definitely kill one of them. However, he couldn't act according to his temperament. There were still many people from the Wuji realm in the Sky Profound World, and there were still some forces developing in the Sky Profound World. If he directly attacked today, it would be the same as declaring war on the Sky South Empire, and the consequences would be very serious. My strength isn't enough, said Night Sorrow sorrowfully. You're already not bad. No one would believe that you could fight a 2-star King Realm expert to this level. Also, you have to be careful. These people from the Sky South Empire are truly too shameless. 2 King Realm experts killing a Saint King. If this matter were to spread, it would be very embarrassing, but they still did it, said Yen Tianpa. Uncle, then I'll take the teleportation array and leave. Be careful. It's best if your main body doesn't come out from the Wuji realm. The Sky South Empire has at least 3 despicable King Realm experts, said Night Sorrow. All right then, go. Yen Tianpa nodded. He was looking forward to Night Sorrow's growth. Once there were 2 King Realm experts in the alliance, the situation would change and they wouldn't be so passive. The Two Polarity City was rather far from the Heavenly Cauldron City, but the teleportation array was developed. Night Sorrow used a dozen teleportations and returned to the West Radiance Peak from the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain. When Night Sorrow returned to his courtyard, Elder Xiang was sitting and drinking tea. Kid, where did you run off to? Hey, you're injured. What happened? Elder Xiang was originally happy to see Night Sorrow, but then he frowned. I'll heal first. I'll tell Elder Xiang later. Night Sorrow had to refine the sword Qi Gongyang Lai left in his body. Elder Xiang nodded and sat aside. He could see that there was something wrong with Night Sorrow's body, and it was not a small problem. After Night Sorrow meditated, he began to force the sword Qi out of his body. At the same time, he began to refine it. Looking at the sword Qi leaking out of Night Sorrow's body, Elder Xiang frowned. He could tell that it was a sword Qi that contained the will of heaven and earth, which meant that the one who injured Night Sorrow was a King Realm cultivator. Original P version, Night Sorrow had spent 6 days meditating to recover. He had used the laws of nothingness and the laws of time to refine the sword Qi and force it out of his body. It had taken him 6 days to do so. One could imagine how powerful the sword Qi, which contained the will of the world, was. Sorry to keep you waiting, Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow changed his tattered robe and said, Which King Realm cultivator attacked you? Elder Xiang asked angrily. An enemy from my hometown. It's nothing. They still haven't killed me. Elder Xiang, don't worry. They don't know I'm at the Tianding Gate, Night Sorrow said. What are you talking about? Since you're a member of the Tianding Gate, then the Tianding Gate will naturally take care of you. Elder Xiang glared at Night Sorrow. Elder Xiang, listen to me. This enmity is too big. I'll deal with it myself. Night Sorrow did not hide anything from Elder Xiang. He directly told him about what had happened between him and the South Sky Dynasty. Shameless. 2 King Realm cultivators attacked you. When you want to fight, just call me, said Elder Xiang. My main body is still comprehending the true meaning of heaven and earth. Once it's effective, my clone can go deal with them. Elder Xiang, don't worry. It's not good to drag the Tianding Gate into this. After all, there are so many disciples in the sect, Night Sorrow said. Letting the Heavenly Cauldron sect fight it out with the Tianan dynasty isn't good for the sect. However, when do you plan to fight? Sovereign Heavenly Cauldron won't participate, but Elder Xiang can, Elder Xiang said with a smile. Night Sorrow understands. Thank you, Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Elder Xiang. Since your main body is cultivating, your clone should focus on studying auxiliary skills. You've reached a bottleneck in alchemy. You can study formations and forging, said Elder Xiang. I'm going to change my way of thinking. My clone won't study formations, said Night Sorrow after thinking for a moment. Don't be silly. Formations are very important. Even if your cultivation base is not high enough, sometimes you can rely on formations to turn defeat into victory. Elder Xiang glared at Night Sorrow. Elder Xiang, you might not know this, but I have another soul clone. However, due to some reasons it can't go out. It's cultivating and forging. Transporting materials is troublesome. I'll let that soul clone cultivate in formations while Elder Xiang and I cultivate in forging, explained Night Sorrow with a smile. 2 soul clones? Not bad. Kid, you're really something. Then let's do it. You can cultivate here in peace. Elder Xiang nodded in satisfaction after hearing Night Sorrow's words. Elder Xiang truly liked Night Sorrow and wanted to nurture Night Sorrow into a talent. That was why he didn't hold back. If there was a selfish motive, it would be to nurture another King Realm cultivator for the Tianding Gate. In addition, Elder Xiang was also very shocked by Night Sorrow's combat strength. Even a King Realm cultivator couldn't kill him. It was conceivable that if Night Sorrow was lucky enough to enter the King Realm, he would definitely be able to crush cultivators at the same level. Elder Xiang gave Night Sorrow some formation and forging books for Night Sorrow to use. However, he said that it wasn't that he couldn't teach it to others. If anyone wanted to learn, they could come to the Tianding Gate to join the sect and follow the rules of the Tianding Gate. No matter how much Elder Xiang valued Night Sorrow, the foundation of a sect was its inheritance. Therefore, this couldn't be discounted. Elder Xiang left. He felt that Night Sorrow entering the Tianding Gate was an opportunity for the Tianding Gate. No matter what happened in the future, as long as Night Sorrow didn't die, then the Tianding Gate wouldn't be destroyed. As a disciple of the Tianding Gate, Night Sorrow had a small world. When Night Sorrow became a King Realm cultivator, then the Tianding Gate would have 2 kings. One of them would be the ruler of a world. His original body wouldn't die and his avatar would be able to fight the world. Who wouldn't be afraid? Night Sorrow went out again and gave the formation books to his avatar in the Heaven Sealing Hall. He also gave the spirit comprehension pills to his original body. This meant that his original body and his 2 avatars were both cultivating. It was just that his original body mainly cultivated his combat strength. He still didn't have a clue about comprehending the true intent of the heavenly Tao, but Night Sorrow wasn't anxious. He didn't lack time now. The 9 regions world was stable, so he could slowly cultivate. If 10 years wasn't enough, then 100 years. If 100 years wasn't enough, then 1,000 years. In the profound sky world, King Realm cultivators were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. If it was so easy to appear, then there wouldn't be such a situation. When he was researching equipment refinement, there were also disciples of the West Radiance Peak that came to seek guidance on alchemy. Night Sorrow didn't refuse anyone. As long as they were willing to learn, then he was willing to teach them. Elder Xiang had a broad mind, and so did he, Night Sorrow. Slowly, Night Sorrow's reputation in the West Radiance Peak grew higher and higher, and there were often elders of the Tianding Gate that came to pay their respects. In the past, these elders of the Tianding Gate didn't visit the West Mountain. Firstly, it was because Chu Danxuan's level was low, and secondly, they didn't dare to flatter her. Now, Night Sorrow could do it. He would receive anyone that came. His avatar wasn't in closed-door cultivation. Even if he was refining equipment or pills, when someone came, he could communicate with them after he finished dealing with the matters at hand. Speak. Chapter 978. Elder Xiang often came over to chat and drink tea with Night Sorrow. Only a limited number of people knew about his identity. Only Night Sorrow, Tian Bin, Chu Danxian, and Tang Yuan knew. They wouldn't tell anyone because it would make things very inconvenient for Elder Xiang. Only Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan didn't talk to Night Sorrow. They didn't have the face to come to Night Sorrow's place. Besides, they were also a bit afraid of Night Sorrow. Putting aside Tang Yuan, who was only at the 5th rank, Chu Danxian was a mid-level saint. The gap between her and Night Sorrow, who was a peak saint king, was too great. Yi Shan didn't walk around the West Radiance Peak, let alone the other peaks of the Heavenly Cauldron sect. He often went out to trade for materials. Regardless of whether he was refining pills or refining weapons, he had to deal with a portion of it to trade for materials and support his proficiency in refining weapons. After staying at the Tianding Gate for a year, Night Sorrow's refining skills had risen to the saint tier. In other words, as long as he had the materials, he could refine saint artifacts. However, refining spirit artifacts was still fine. Refining saint artifacts required very high-grade materials. The reason why Yi Shang's artifact forging skills had improved so quickly was mainly because his clone in the Heaven Sealing Grand Hall had also made some achievements in array formations. Forging weapons and defensive artifacts required array formations to increase their offensive and defensive power. Night Sorrow had accumulated a lot of refining materials in the 9 regions world. He would use them to refine tools and then trade them for other materials. This way, he could earn some profit and maintain his proficiency in refining tools. On this day, Elder Xiang brought the Tianding Gate's Merit Hall's Elder Wang to Night Sorrow's place. Elder Wang, Night Sorrow can refine mid-level and high-grade saint artifacts. If the sect needs them, you can bring the materials to Night Sorrow to refine them. Night Sorrow, you won't charge a fee, right? Elder Xiang asked Night Sorrow. Naturally. Night Sorrow knew that Elder Xiang was giving him a chance to improve his proficiency in refining tools. Then I'll have to trouble you, Master Knight. Elder Wang cupped his hands towards Night Sorrow. There were not many people in the Tianding Gate who could refine sacred artifacts. Most of the time, they were still cultivating. It was still very difficult for many disciples to obtain sacred artifacts. Elder Wang, please don't say that. Night Sorrow is a disciple of the Tianding Gate. Being able to do something for the Tianding Gate is more than welcome. Besides, this is also helpful to me. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Night Sorrow, you don't have any status in the sect. Let me think about it. Elder Xiang said after thinking for a while. Elder Xiang, you know that there are some things I don't care about, Night Sorrow said. I know you don't care. Well, I'll think about it. You don't have to worry about it, Elder Xiang said. He understood Night Sorrow's indifferent attitude, but he still needed the respect of others. If a peak Saint King didn't obtain respect, then the world would be in chaos, and it would be the fall of the rules. On this day, Night Sorrow was guiding the disciples of the West Radiance Peak in pill refinement when Elder Tian Bin arrived at his small courtyard. Elder Tian is here. Sit, I'll watch him finish refining this cauldron of medicinal pills. Night Sorrow nodded to Tian Bin. Tian Bin cupped his hands towards Night Sorrow before sitting down and waiting. He really admired Night Sorrow. Even if someone was asking for guidance on the refinement of low-grade medicinal pills, Night Sorrow would still guide seriously, and it could be said that he was meticulous. Thank you, Master Knight. After this disciple finished refining the medicinal pills, he bowed to Night Sorrow, and then he left behind a jar of good wine before leaving Night Sorrow's small courtyard. The disciples of the Tianding Gate all knew that Night Sorrow guided others and even helped others refine medicinal pills and weapons for free, so they felt apologetic and would bring some good wine and tea when they came. Elderton, tea or wine? Night Sorrow looked at Tian Bin and asked. Wine is fine, Tian Bin said with a smile. Night Sorrow took out 2 wine bowls and opened the wine jar left behind by that disciple, and then he poured a bowl for everyone. Every time I come here, I'm always drinking wine. I'm really ashamed, Tianbin said with slight embarrassment. Then bring 2 jars of good wine next time, Night Sorrow said. He was very casual with whoever he chatted with now. Look at the original version. Chapter 1 I came here this time because I have something to tell Master Knight. The sect master has come out of seclusion, and there's going to be a meeting of elders and protectors tomorrow. Master Knight wants to participate as well. This is Elder Xiang's idea, Tianbin said. He knew that with Yi Shang, the sect leader's words were not necessarily effective. However, Yi Shang would definitely respect Elder Xiang's words. Elder Xiang said that Night Sorrow will definitely be there on time. Night Sorrow nodded. It's probably nothing much. Elder Xiang probably wants you to get to know the sect master and the various elders, Tianbin said. After chatting with Night Sorrow for a while, Tianbin left. Night Sorrow thought for a while and felt that it would be good to get to know him. After all, he was a disciple of the Tianding Gate and had to live in the Tianding Gate for a long time. After resting for a night, Night Sorrow changed into a loose moon-white robe. Just as he was about to go out, Chu Danxian came to the small courtyard. Today is a meeting of the sect's higher-ups. I'm here to invite Master Knight, Chu Danxian said. The word master behind the surname was a respectful title for cultivators with attainments in alchemy, equipment refinement, and formations. The members of the Tianding Gate now addressed Night Sorrow as Master Knight. Alright, there's no need to be reserved. Let bygones be bygones. I'm doing very well in the West Radiance Peak. Night Sorrow looked at Chu Danxian and spoke. He was also considering Elder Xiang's good intentions towards Chu Danxian, so he didn't want Chu Danxian to be too embarrassed. Chu Danxian nodded. She was very ashamed in her heart because she had gone too far when Night Sorrow had just entered the sect. When Chu Danxian brought Night Sorrow into the main hall, everyone in the main hall stood up. During these past few days, these elders had more or less asked Night Sorrow for help, so they were very respectful to Night Sorrow. A man in a blue robe who was sitting on the main seat stood up as well. I'm Yan Huifeng. I've been in seclusion for many years and neglected Master Knight. I'm very sorry. Yan Huifeng was the only Peak Saint King before the Tianding Gate. He had always been seeking to break through to the King Realm, so he didn't really deal with the sex matters. This time, he came out of seclusion because of Elder Xiang. Gate Master is too polite. Night Sorrow has been doing very well at the Tianding Gate. All the elders and Elder Xiang have taken good care of Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow cupped his hands at Yan Huifeng. All right, Master Knight, please sit. Yan Huifeng nodded. Come here. Elder Xiang, who was sitting on the first chair on the left, waved at Night Sorrow. This isn't appropriate, Night Sorrow said. After all, he was just an ordinary disciple at the Tianding Gate. No problem. Elder Xiang smiled and nodded. Master Knight, please sit. Yan Huifeng nodded at Night Sorrow again. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow sat down beside Elder Xiang. Then, Yan Huifeng asked about the situation at the Tianding Gate in recent years, and some of the elders reported back. Next, we'll discuss Master Knight's problem. Master Knight won the title of Purple Crystal Pill King at the Alchemist Conference. This is the glory of the Tianding Gate. In addition, Master Knight is also a Peak Saint King. I'm sure everyone knows this. Cultivating talents, valuing talents, and respecting talents are the foundation of the Tianding Gate, so if anyone has any opinions, please speak up. Yan Huifeng nodded at Night Sorrow, and the topic fell on Night Sorrow. Speak. Chapter 979. Brat, don't say anything. Don't be so useless. Old Xiang looked at Night Sorrow, who was about to speak, and directly spoke to stop him. Night Sorrow was startled and didn't say anything. Old Xiang was always looking out for him. The elders in the main hall were all Saint King-level elders. Their intention was for Yi Shang to enter the Elder Pavilion and become an elder as well. Teacher Knight's situation is the same as mine. Even if it's just a clone, it's probably focused on alchemy, formations, and refining. As an elder, it wouldn't have the time to manage things. We can't delay Teacher Knight's progress. What I mean is for Teacher Knight to be the Tianding Gate's protector elder, said Yen Huifeng. Hearing Yen Huifeng's words, the elders were startled for a moment before nodding. Peak Saint Kings really did have many things to do. After the sect meeting ended, old Xiang stood up. Teacher Knight has only been at the Tianding Gate for a short time, but his alchemy, forging, and formation skills are all very strong. The main thing is that he has his own understanding and isn't troubled by some of our Tianding Gate's old problems. You can also ask him for advice. Does Teacher Knight have a problem? No problem. Just go to my place and take the good wine and tea. Night Sorrow smiled. Everyone in the hall cupped their hands towards Night Sorrow. They knew that Night Sorrow was just joking. What's the value of wine and tea? Tell me, how's your main body? Asked old Xiang. I've had some comprehension recently and have entered seclusion. All right, old Xiang, do you know where I can display the time-attributed will of heaven and earth? Night Sorrow asked. He knew that as a king-level expert, old Xiang was very knowledgeable. Don't bite off more than you can chew. If you want to control the time-attributed will of heaven and earth, you'll need to restrain him in terms of attributes. He's a fire attribute, while Yen Tianpe is a water attribute. Speak. Chapter 980. Shang Tianfeng was a 5-star king, and Yen Tianpe was a 5-star king. Shang Tianfeng comprehended the mystic fire true intent, while Yen Tianpe comprehended the blackwater true intent. Their attributes were suppressed, so Shang Tianfeng could only swallow his anger. Even if he brought Yuan Qianba and Gong Yanglai with him, it would be useless. Gong Yanglai was a 2-star saint, and he couldn't help much. Emperor, that Yen Tianpe is too arrogant. Can we join forces with others to kill him? At most, we'll take a portion of the Wuji world and 9 regions world, Yuan Qianba said. If we want to kill him with a 100% chance, we'll have to invite a high-grade king. We can't afford the price of a high-grade king, and we don't have a 100% chance of killing a mid-grade king. If we can't kill him, the consequences will be severe, Shang Tianfeng said. If the old emperor returns from his travels, all these won't be a problem, Yuan Qianba said after thinking for a while. Glancing at Yuan Qianba, Shang Tianfeng left the Sky South Palace. Actually, Yuan Qianba regretted it after saying that. The old emperor's departure was a stain on Shang Tianfeng's reputation, a flaw in his character. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Sky South dynasty's emperor was Shang Xi. In order to pursue a higher realm, he didn't care about worldly affairs. He wasn't even in the Sky South dynasty. The Sky South dynasty's affairs were managed by Crown Prince Shang Tianfeng and Princess Shang Tianfei. Later, Shang Tianfeng started a war and eliminated his sister's family, as well as his brother-in-law's family. Shang Xi, who had rushed back after learning of her daughter's death, slapped Shang Tianfeng and left the Tiannan Empire, never to appear again. 20,000 years later, Shang Tianfeng followed the rules of the empire and became the emperor of the Tiannan Empire after the emperor's absence for 20,000 years. This wasn't a secret in the Sky South dynasty, but no one mentioned it. Today, he was slapped in the face, and Yuan Qianba said it with emotion. After Night Sorrow arrived at the Sky South dynasty's White Dragon City, he walked around the city and used his soul power to investigate. After discovering that there was only 1 high-grade Saint King and 2 Saint Kings in the city, he decided to take action. After returning to the teleportation formation and taking the teleportation crystal, Night Sorrow killed his way to the city lord's residence. Yishang did not hide his cultivation. When he arrived at the city lord's mansion, the 3 saint rulers came out. Lord, this isn't a place. This isn't a place. This isn't a place. City Lord. Crown Prince Tang was Crown Prince's territory? Was Crown Prince? Usually, Crown Prince wasn't here. Whether or not I can behave atrociously isn't something you can decide. Use your strength to speak. After Yishan finished speaking, he waved his space-splitting spear and charged at them. Chapter. There was a difference in cultivation and attributes. Coupled with Yishang's powerful body, The three saint rulers could not stop Yi Shang's slaughter. It only took a moment for Yi Shang to kill them all. One high-grade Saint King and two mid-grade Saint Kings fell in front of Night Sorrow. After collecting their weapons, storage rings, and saint crystals, Night Sorrow entered the City Lord's residence. His soul power found the City Lord's warehouse, and after a frenzied sweep, he flew back to the teleportation formation. Night Sorrow didn't know which teleportation crystal was for his next target, Sky Flame City. He casually placed a teleportation crystal, set up a spirit explosion array, and started the teleportation. The spirit explosion array would explode after Night Sorrow left, blowing up the teleportation formation. Night Sorrow did this to prevent the other party from reporting. After 2 teleportations, Night Sorrow arrived at Sky Flame City. He repeated his old plan and killed 2 more Saint Kings. After taking their personal resources and the City Lord's resources, he went to the next city. Night Sorrow robbed 1 more city than his original target before quietly leaving and returning to the Tianding Gate. The Tianding Gate was very quiet. After Night Sorrow returned, he went to his courtyard to sort out his harvest. When Night Sorrow finished sorting out the last storage ring, Old Xiang came. Your killing intent and battle intent are very strong. You fought before, Old Xiang said to Night Sorrow. He felt that Night Sorrow's aura was different from before. I've fought a few battles. Recently, I've been running low on materials. So, I went to the South Sky Dynasty and swept through 4 cities. I stole some resources from their City Lord's mansion. These can support my cultivation and artifact forging, Yi Shan said. You're too bold. The Sky South Dynasty is probably in a mess right now. Damn it, a Saint King actually dares to provoke our Sky South Dynasty. He really doesn't want to live anymore. Yuan Qianba's face was full of anger. He will return to the 9 regions world, so entering the 2 extremes city of the Wuji world is a place he must pass through. Sovereign kings are not allowed to go. General Yuan, send a few peak stage Saint Kings from the Fierce Wind Army over. Since he has shown himself, kill him at all costs, Shang Tianfeng, who was sitting in the main guard, ordered. I understand. Yuan Qianba nodded. Chun, send people to put up a portrait of him in our Sky South Dynasty. Raise our vigilance, and put out a large bounty for him. Shang Tianfeng made a series of arrangements. The news of the Sky South Dynasty putting out a bounty for a peak Saint King spread. Some people clapped their hands in joy, feeling that Night Sorrow had done well. He was not afraid of power. Some people planned to look for Night Sorrow and get a reward. All cultivators were lacking resources, especially some independent cultivators. Doing some bounty missions was their source of resources. Speak. Chapter 981. In the profound heaven world, there were very few King Realm cultivators, but there were many peak Saint Kings. However, Night Sorrow was one of the more famous ones. He had massacred 4 cities of the Tianan Empire. This was not something an ordinary person would dare to do. If he was targeted by the Tianan Empire, he would have to hide for the rest of his life. Once he did, he would be killed by the king of the Tianan Empire. Night Sorrow had been refining pills for half a month when Elder Xiang returned. He had a serious expression. They have issued a bounty on you, so the problem is more serious. After all, there are many people in the Tianding Gate who know about you. I can guarantee that most people will not leak the secret. However, if there is someone who is blinded by greed, you will be exposed, Elder Xiang said. Night Sorrow stood up and said, I didn't consider it thoroughly. This way, when I leave the Tianding Gate, they can just say that I'm not here and there won't be any problems. Shang Tianfeng must have the courage to come to the gate. Elder Xiang waved his hand to stop Night Sorrow. But this will affect the Tianding Gate. Night Sorrow said. Elder Xiang thought for a moment and said, No, I will deal with this. Besides, the Tianding Gate is too peaceful. It's good to be a little nervous. We have to be vigilant in times of peace. If it continues to be peaceful, it will not be good for the sect. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and nodded. The situation is critical. Elder Xiang, you have to tell me. I have my principles. Elder Xiang nodded and left. Night Sorrow continued to refine pills. What Night Sorrow didn't know was that Elder Xiang had returned to his original appearance after leaving the West Radiance Peak. Then, he called for a sect meeting. He didn't tell Night Sorrow about this. In the Tianding Gates Hall, everyone who saw Elder Xiang's true appearance bowed. At this moment, he was not Elder Xiang. He was the Tianding King. Sect Master, the Tianding Gate will be preparing for battle. Elder Xiang gave an order to Yen Huifeng. Yes, do we need to gather the disciples outside? Yen Huifeng asked. No need. Elder Xiang shook his head. King, what happened? Is the sect going to enter a defensive or offensive state? Tianbin asked. As for what happened, there's no harm in telling you. It's Teacher Yi who challenged 4 cities of the Tianan Empire and killed some of their Saint Kings. He's now wanted by the Tianan Empire. Don't say that he's the one who caused the trouble, because the enmity between Teacher Yi and the Tianan Empire is too great. Teacher Yi didn't want to get involved with the Tianding Gate, so I asked him to stay, said Elder Xiang. Then Mr. Xiang told him about Night Sorrow's situation. Sovereign King, you don't need to explain. Master Yi is from the Heavenly Cauldron sect. Let's not talk about how we can't fight for him. However, if anyone comes knocking on our door, we must stand together against them, Yen Huifeng said. Originally, Teacher Yi wanted to leave the Tianding Gate. He didn't want the Tianding Gate to get involved in this mess. But our Tianding Gate hasn't experienced any storms for many years, and our unity has declined. We need this kind of situation to stimulate us, said Elder Xiang. Teacher Yi is really fierce. He's such a peaceful person, but he challenged 4 cities of the Tianan Empire. How domineering, said Tianbin as he waved his arm. Original V, then that's it. Don't tell Teacher Yi about this for now. Just prepare for battle in secret, said Elder Xiang. In fact, there would always be brave men with great rewards. The South Sky Dynasty still received news that there was a member of the Heavenly Cauldron sect called Night Sorrow. In the Tianan Palace, Shang Tianfeng sat in the main seat, bathed in the light of the fire. Shang Jingchun, who was in charge of the scouting operation, told him about the situation with Night Sorrow. Heavenly Cauldron sect. He actually joined the Heavenly Cauldron sect. This matter won't be easy to handle, Shang Tianfeng mumbled softly. Emperor, if the Tianding Gate's Night Sorrow is the 9 regions world's Night Sorrow, then the Tianding Gate is in the wrong. We can definitely go and ask for him, said Yuan Qianba. Do you think the Tianding Gate will hand him over? Even if they're in the wrong, they'll lose face if they hand him over. That Xiang Tianding won't compromise, said Shang Tianfeng. Then we'll just endure it, said Gong Yanglai angrily. Among the holy kings that Night Sorrow had killed, 2 of them were members of the Gongyang family. The Gongyang family had suffered a great loss. General Yuan, go to the Tianding Gate and negotiate with them. We're willing to pay a great price. After thinking about it, Shang Tianfeng made his decision. The Tianan Empire was very powerful, but the Tianding Gate was also a power with a long history. The Tianding King's heaven-bearing cauldron was a stabilizing force. It wasn't something that any power could easily provoke. When Yuan Qianba arrived at the foot of the Tianding Gate mountain, Elder Xiang appeared. Lord King, why have you graced my Tianding Gate with your presence? I am Yuan Qianba from the Tianan Empire. I've come to pay a visit to the Tianding King on the orders of my ruler. Yuan Qianba's posture was very low because he felt a powerful pressure. Then let's talk in the main hall. Elder Xiang nodded. He couldn't refuse someone who had come to pay a visit. In the main hall, Yuan Qianba said a few polite words before speaking his purpose. How can I say that for no reason? Someone from the Tianan Empire has come to pay a visit. Go back and tell your ruler that coming to the Tianding Gate is impossible. Even if Night Sorrow did something, that's between you. The Tianding Gate's face isn't something that just anyone can slap. Elder Xiang directly expressed his attitude. It could be said that he didn't give Yuan Qianba any face. The Tianan Empire is willing to pay a price. Yuan Qianba stood up. Gate Master, see the guest out. Elder Xiang directly waved his sleeve. Tianding King, you have to understand that the Tianding Gate's disciples attacked my Tianan Empire's 4 cities. We can't just let this matter pass. If you insist, it won't be good for the Tianding Gate, said Yuan Qianba. You came to scare me? I want to see how it won't be good for me. Elder Xiang sneered. Yuan Qianba looked at the Tianding King and then left the main hall. He was helpless about this result. He didn't dare say anything more excessive. If he angered Elder Xiang, he wouldn't have a good ending. Do you really think the Tianan Empire is the overlord of the profound heaven world? Elder Xiang waved his sleeve and left the main hall. Night Sorrow was still refining pills. He didn't know what was going on outside. When Elder Xiang arrived, Night Sorrow had just finished refining a cauldron of spirit comprehension pills. Clapping his hands, Night Sorrow brewed a pot of tea. Elder Xiang, you're a bit angry. Who made you unhappy? No, it's just a bastard who disgusted me. Elder Xiang smiled. Night Sorrow and Elder Xiang drank tea and chatted. Night Sorrow's refining was very smooth. He didn't need to ask anything. What cultivation technique are you cultivating? If you have time, you can take a look at the Tianding Gate's sacred cauldron scripture. Speak. Chapter 982. Elder Xiang, what are you talking about? Night Sorrow was shocked. I don't know what scripture you are cultivating, but you can compare it with the scripture of the Heavenly Cauldron sect. You can gain more insights from your current foundation and increase your combat strength, Old Xiang said to Yishang. Not that. Elder Xiang, what scripture are you talking about? Night Sorrow asked again. What's wrong with the Holy Cauldron scripture? Elder Xiang looked at Night Sorrow in surprise. He didn't understand why Night Sorrow was so excited. My sect's scripture is the Holy Cauldron scripture, Night Sorrow said. Tell me, is it the same? Elder Xiang was also shocked. Night Sorrow recited the first part of the Holy Cauldron scripture. Then Elder Xiang recited the second part. What's going on? I created the Holy Cauldron scripture. How can you know if you haven't seen it? Elder Xiang looked at Night Sorrow in shock. How can Elder Xiang's scripture be passed down in the 9-domain world? Night Sorrow was also very puzzled. This meant that the Medicine Valley and the Tianding Gate had a connection. How many years has the Medicine Valley sect in the 9-domain world been passed down for? Elder Xiang asked. It's less than 10,000 years old. I don't know if it's not recorded, Night Sorrow said. Could it be that one of the disciples of the Tianding Gate went to the 9-domain world and created the gate? Elder Xiang said. The two of them then discussed and felt that it was very likely that one of the disciples of the Tianding Gate went to the 9-domain world and created the sect. Elder Xiang, what level can the Tianding Gate's Holy Cauldron scripture reach? Night Sorrow asked after explaining the situation of the Medicine Valley's Holy Cauldron scripture. King, the level of the Medicine Valley is a bit low. How about this? I'll go to the 9-domain world with you and see the records of the Medicine Valley. If there's a connection, the Tianding Gate can help the Medicine Valley develop, Elder Xiang said after thinking for a moment. RZ original initial K initial J Night Sorrow nodded. He also agreed with this idea. It could be said that the Medicine Valley was a branch of the Tianding Gate. As for whether the Medicine Valley was willing to recognize the Tianding Gate, it depended on the decision of the higher-ups of the Medicine Valley. Old Xiang went to the Heavenly Cauldron Palace and told Yen Huifeng that he was going to visit the 9 regions world. Yen Huifeng was also very interested, and he wanted to go to the 9 regions world with him. Thus, the three of them set off for the 9 domains world. The Sky South Empire's men who wanted to kill Night Sorrow were in the 2 extreme city, but with Elder Xiang, whose cultivation base could not be seen through, they did not dare to make a move. Night Sorrow and Elder Xiang arrived at the 2 extreme city. The Yenwu Absolute notified Yen Tianpa. After all, the king's crossing of the border was a big matter. Yen Tianpa soon arrived at 2 extreme city. Rare guest Yen Tianpa greets you. Yen Tianpa laughed and cupped his fists towards Elder Xiang. Flame World Lord is too polite. This seat intends to visit Night Sorrow's world, so I would like to disturb the Flame World Lord. Elder Xiang said. Absolute, you idiot. I already said that Night Sorrow is this seat's nephew, and the people he brought are all guests. Why do you still need to notify him? Yen Tianpe scolded Absolute before bringing Night Sorrow and the rest to Limitless City. Yen Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu warmly received Night Sorrow, Elder Xiang and Yen Huifeng. After which, Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang and Yen Huifeng to the city in the sky. After exiting the city in the sky's teleportation array, Elder Xiang looked at Night Sorrow and said in astonishment, "Virtuous body. You have a virtuous body in the 9 regions world." "Yes, I might have some virtuous body in the 9 regions world." Night Sorrow nodded. Night Sorrow's return was a joyous occasion. Night Sorrow knew that Elder Xiang and Yen Huifeng didn't like crowds, so he brought his wife to greet them before letting them stay for the time being. After spending 2 days with his family, Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang, Yen Huifeng, his 3 wives and Xue Shi to the Medicine Valley. Night Sorrow brought them directly to the Pill Cauldron main hall. After which, he nodded towards Chu Lingxiao, who was on duty, and asked him to call all the higher-ups of the Medicine Valley over. After the Great Elder, Hua Yunpeng, Yu Yangyu and the rest arrived, Night Sorrow introduced Elder Xiang and Yen Huifeng to everyone. He also told them about the Holy Cauldron scripture. After listening to Night Sorrow's introduction, Hua Yunpeng and the rest were shocked. Once it was confirmed that the Medicine Valley's inheritance came from the Tianding Gate, it would be a big deal. "Don't be nervous. I won't force you to do anything. I just heard that the Holy Cauldron scripture was passed down in the 9 regions world, so I came to take a look. Also, here is a list of all the names of our disciples in the past 20,000 years. You can check if your founder is among them," Elder Xiang said. "Many of the ancient records of our Medicine Valley have disappeared, but the names of the alchemy ancestor and the founder of the sect still exist. The alchemy ancestor is Xiang Jun, and the founder of the sect is Master Yao Qing," the great elder said. "Yao Qing? It's Yao Qing?" Yen Huifeng stood up in surprise. "What's wrong? Sect Master, you know Yao Qing?" Elder Xiang asked Yen Huifeng. "I know him. He joined the sect at the same time as I did. He wasn't very focused on cultivation, but he had a special interest in alchemy. That was 20,000 years ago. He went out to collect herbs and never appeared again. I investigated his disappearance and found that he went to the Tiannan dynasty to collect the Cloud Spirit fruit. At that time, we were only elite disciples. The Holy Cauldron scripture could only help us reach the saint level." Yen Huifeng flipped through the list as he spoke. Because there was a specific number of years, it didn't take him long to find the record of Yao Qing. Yen Huifeng took the list and showed it to everyone. "My surname is Xiang. It seems that there is no mistake. How about this? Don't feel pressured. If you need any help, the Tianding Gate will support you. You can also continue to cultivate at the Tianding Gate. The inheritance will be passed down to you," Elder Xiang said. Although it was confirmed that the Medicine Valley was a branch of the Tianding Gate, Elder Xiang didn't want to force the Medicine Valley to acknowledge their ancestors. After all, the Medicine Valley was already an independent sect. Although Elder Xiang thought so, the first rule of the Medicine Valley's inheritance was to respect one's teachers. Since Yu Yangyu and the others knew where the inheritance came from, they naturally wouldn't deny it. Everyone bowed to Elder Xiang and respectfully called him Ancestral Master. "Very well. Night Sorrow, if you hadn't entered the Tianxian world, the Tianding Gate wouldn't have known that they had lost an inheritance. Now is a good thing. As for what the Medicine Valley plans to do next, the Tianding Gate will fully support it. Sect Master will communicate with everyone. Night Sorrow, accompany me to walk around. Today is really a good day," Elder Xiang said with a smile. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew some things. Yen Huifeng, Yu Yangyu, and the others would communicate well. Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang to the Supreme River Space, the Underworld, and the Profound Mysteries realm. With him, Elder Xiang could naturally enter and exit the 9 domains world. The 3 domains are very peaceful. You have governed them well. No wonder you have so much power of virtue, Elder Xiang said to Night Sorrow as he looked at him. "I just want the people around me, I want everyone to live a better life." Night Sorrow really didn't deliberately seek power of virtue. You don't understand. Power of virtue is hard to find, even in the Tianxian world. If you have some merit in the Tianxian world, then your body of virtue will be triggered and the Tianxian world will recognize you, Elder Xiang said. Speak. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.